What up, Doe? One Pride. This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where one pride truly goes worldwide. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined by Ryan McCluskey. That can only mean one thing. As always, we are back with the college football podcast. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm good, yeah. College football is very near to week 0. Like I say, it's kind of gone quiet. It's the calm before the storm right now. Like I say, teams are just working out starting QBs. The portal is left with the dregs of probably the guys will have to just take their name out because they're not going to land anywhere now. But yeah, football is literally like, 24 days or something from like the first game? Absolutely nothing.
No, yep, we are nearly there, and to be honest, it's a lot nicer looking at the college stuff at the minute rather than having coronaries looking at the beat writers stuff from the Lions today, because every time they seem to tweet, someone's got injured, and it's already making me upset. So we're not going to focus on that this evening. We're going to focus on college football, and we're going to forget that Detroit Lions practice exists at this moment in time. Just to do the housekeeping before we go onwards, Roar Lions UK, our Discord. If you are not yet involved with it, it's good fun. Just give us a shout out and we'll give you a link to it and you can come join us in there. Our main podcast went out yesterday. Me, Ryan, Tom, Matt and Steve had a really good chat about training camp. Took a few Lions questions as well, and even got into some of the weird and bizarre at the end. So it was a good laugh. Go and check that out there. And then we're going to be back next Monday as well. Obviously, you can catch us on Lions Nation Unite, the app run by Herman Moore, by the fans, for the fans. It's a great forum there, a lot of roundtables which you'll find various members of us on at various times. So sign up to that. It's a great it's a great little project Herman Moore's got going. It's all about fan contributors. No credential press, no nothing like that. Just giving rise to the best of the best on YouTube and Twitch. So that is all really good there. Right. That is the housekeeping done. So, as if you've been watching the first few episodes of this new season of ours, we're realizing that we are going through conference previews. We're trying to give you an in-depth preview to all the conferences coming up to the college season, because there's that many teams, there's that many players. You know, it's nice to be able to break it down, just talk a little bit about the teams, about the coaches, etc., and just hopefully break it down a little bit for people. We have so far looked at the CUSA, the Sun Belt, and last week we did all about the American Athletic Conference. This has been good fun so far, but we're switching it up a little bit this week here. So we're going to be talking about one of our favourite conferences, or usually what is one of our favourite conferences. Today we are going to be talking about the Mountain West. The Mountain West, where strength is a key, where do or die is not a motto, it is a way of life, where any form of weakness is punished severely. This league, Ryan, is the League of Steel. It will probably be the one that Dan Campbell would choose if he could go back to college. This is a go big or go home league, which can be really fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of run-heavy teams. There's a lot of teams that pride themselves on defense. Passing, it's not always known for the best amount of passing across the years, but they're physical. There's a lot of long head coach tenures as well. Like I say, it's a lot. It's steeped in tradition, and it's got one of the most underrated teams in college football. The Broncos, Boise State, one of the winningest teams since 2000. They're one of the best teams in all of college football. They're like top 11 for winning percentage like the last 22 years, and absolutely no one talks about them ever. Let's say those from Boise, Idaho. Let's say Albertson Fields, the Blue Turf. They're a very famous team, and they're just a great story.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a treasure trove of wonderment to be found in this conference, whether it's the teams, some of the rivalries, the histories in there. There's so much great stuff, and like I say, some of the players that this produces, it might not produce the most flashy offensive players in the world, but my God, it provides some defensive maulers, some, disruptive guys in there. One of our biggest draft crushers last year was Cameron Thomas, who came out of San Diego State. The guy had 27 tackles for a loss, basically lived in the opposition backfield, and it's just so smash mouth, and you just love it. So yeah, this is a conference we're both high on. Just before we go into this, give a shout out to the chat on YouTube. Chrome is in there. He says, "What up, Raw? Thank you for joining us as always, Chrome. We love having you in here with us." Lions Nation Unite app is in the building going, "Yo, what's up? Is that you, Mike? Or is that you, Chrissy or Herman? I don't know who it is, but thank you for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it." And on Twitch, Quirky Zerky is with us, and they've just subscribed at Tier 1. This is a 5th month of subscription there to go. Woohoo, football is almost here. You're damn right, it's getting very close, and we're really looking forward to it. As Ryan says, week 0 is coming up soon, and which means I've got to get on with these conference previews, but we will get there. We will do this all for you. So, we just did mention there, we do love the Mountain West, but during the research for this, I've been a little bit disheartened about how bad the league is possibly going to be this year. I mean, last year we had a surprise winner who came out of absolutely nowhere. The better teams struggled, especially on offense. And then coming back this season, you know how I talk about, when I talk about the teams, the return in production, because it is vital getting players back who are experienced and had snaps there. So there are 131 teams in the FBS this year. The teams ranked 129th, 130th, and 131st in returning production, i.e. they're barely getting anyone back from last year, all reside in the Mountain West. So there are some hella big rebuild jobs to be had in here, and I think outside of one team who I've highlighted, there's a lot of mediocrity at the minute. There's a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done in this league. I think it's going to be a tough watch in some cases this year, isn't it?
Yeah. It's probably the case, you know what? Get rid of it, dissolve it. Like, say, the Mountain West is like the Pac-12. It really, the long-term future for me, I don't think it really has one. Teams that are moving, like, say, the Pac-12 it's full of Utah. Like, say, half the teams in the Mountain West are in or around Utah. So teams that leave the Pac-12, teams from the Mountain West can probably just make that transition straight over, because a lot of them are in the middle and to the north. So this is another conference that's probably going to get ripped apart. Some of the teams, as you say, last year were dreadful. There was a surprise winner, and one of them is down on its luck. Like I say, one of them's a big name, a very big name, but recently they've stunk, and they have let that crown has fallen off, and I don't see it coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, it's, I'm just going to say it now, we do the championship game thing at the end. I'm still trying to figure out what it's going to be, because I've just no idea behind the obvious one for me there. But we'll get to that, and we've got a lot to go through, so let's dive down into this. So the Mountain West Conference, also known as the MWC, that was founded in 1998. Got a lot of the oldest teams in the country in here, a lot of teams from the 1800s. There's a lot of history behind some of these teams and the rivalries in the division. So the current champions mentioned, they were surprising last year. It was the Utah State Aggies. And I went back and looked at this, and they were they were predicted to finish 5th in their conference last year. I mean, that's not just like 5th overall in the Mountain West. It was 5th in just their conference alone of 6 teams, and yet they came through and won the whole damn thing. I mean, I don't think many of us saw that one coming.
Nope. And they scored heavily. That offense was potent. It's heavy passing. It runs well. They scored a lot of points on a weekly basis. They had one of the best receivers in the entire nation last year. I'm going to get the name wrong. It's not Keontae Tompkins, is it? It's something.
Devin Tompkins.
He was phenomenal last year, him and Logan Bonner. So, yeah, they took the nation by storm. I predicted them to lose that championship game, I remember. And they won it pretty handsomely.
Yeah, agreed. Quirky's asked on Twitter, and I'll throw this to you because you've mentioned it there, but he says, do you see a situation where the Pac-12 and the Mountain West align together if the losses become too high individually in the conferences?
Yeah. For survival, I feel like you just have maybe a 16-team conference, and you just call it something like the Mountain Pacific. something like that, because the Pac-12 is rumoured to have a lot of losses.
Ooh.
And I expect with deals ending in 22, 23 and teams moving, there's going to be a lot of holes there. So it's not good having two different small conferences. Just work together.
Well, I tell you what, the Pacific Mountain region, that sounds intimidating, doesn't it? Like, the Pacific's absolutely huge, mountain. I like the sound of that. The Pacific Mountain region. I could certainly get behind, but yeah, to answer your question, Quirky, yeah, we think that maybe there could be a merger there, but I know there's a lot of argument going off between the Big 12 and the Pac-12 at the minute. All these rumours of tapping up. Oh god, that's going to get ugly very quickly, so we'll wait and see what comes out of that. But like I say, we hear about the Mountain West today. So in terms of the breakdown of where the teams are, so obviously we've done the CUSA, Sunbelt and the American so far, and they're all way on the other side of the country on the eastern seaboard, sort of from the middle of Texas all the way over to Florida, and then you go up to New York and then back across to Ohio and to Kansas, sort of in that region of the world. This is right on the other side. This is on the west coast where games take place at stupid o'clock in the morning because of the time difference. So the teams, there's two divisions in here. So you've got the Mountain Division and you've got the Western Division. So in the Mountain Division, your teams are Air Force, Boise State, Colorado State, New Mexico, Utah State, who were the winners of the whole thing last year, and Wyoming. And then in the Western Division, you've got Fresno State, Hawaii, Nevada, San Diego State, who were the Western Conference winners last year, San Jose State, and then you've got the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, which is UNLV for short. So sort of the geographical breakdown, you've got San Diego State sort of the bottom left of the square that this creates, just sort of south of Los Angeles. Then you go up into the desert, you'll come across UNLV in Vegas. Then you go all the way out east to New Mexico, where you'll find the Lobos out there. And then you sort of go north from New Mexico up into Colorado. You've got Air Force, Colorado State, you've got Wyoming just over the border as well. Then you head back west into Utah, and then sort of up northwest into Idaho, where you find Boise State, and then back down towards the coast into Nevada, and then reach San Francisco area where you've got San Jose State, and you've got the Fresno Bulldogs. So like a nice little square out there on the western coast, kind of but I mean, to us it doesn't look like it's very far, but you could probably fit Britain in there and you'd lose it in the gap in between. There is a big distance between some of these teams there, but yeah, they're all located out on the west coast really. This is one of the few conferences this year or in years to come that's not actually seeing any movement at the minute, so there are no teams arriving in the near future. There are no teams going in the near future. So actually, yeah, one of the few where at the minute, there's no conference realignment issues. So it's going to stay as it is for the foreseeable, although next year they won't be using conferences. They're using conferences this year. They won't be next season. There is a question. Well, for any die-hard Lions fans out there, any older Lions fans here, there's a trivia question that I've got for you, and if you answer it on the way through, there is one head coach in this division currently who used to play quarterback for the Detroit Lions. So whenever I say his name, or if you already know, put it in the comments and shout you out. So I wouldn't try, right? It's not a very well-known one. I'm just thinking to maybe some of the older guys here if they recognise the name as and when I say it. But yeah, one of the head coaches used to play quarterback, so give us a shout out when if you hear him and you realise who he is. So let's move on into the teams. And first, we're going to start off with the second of our service teams. So we did about the Navy midshipmen the other week, whereas now we're coming into probably what would arguably be the best service team at this moment in time. So this is the Air Force Falcons. They were established in 1955, play at the Falcon Stadium. Their 2021 record, they went 10-3, and they were 6-2 in the Mountain West in conference there. They only missed out on the Mountain Division title due to a tiebreak. They lost to Utah State in a 49-45 game earlier in the season. It was one we highlighted on the pod, actually, wasn't it? They could realistically have won that game, and if they had, that would have been them in the title game, and it may have been them with the championship. It was really a game of fine margins between these two. But Air Force, a really good season for them, isn't it?
It was, and I agree, they are the best academy because they're the most balanced. Their offense is way more balanced than the other two combined, and they've got pretty nasty defense, very well coached. And also, I might add, I actually think they're the best looking. I love the white, blue, and silver and their Thunderbolt. It's just so minimal, but it just looks so good. They're so tidy and clean. But yeah, they're really good. I'll put it this way, I'd say I have got a very good feeling they're going to be in a championship this year. So I'm starting off straight away. This is my representative from this year's for the championship game.
I will probably agree with you by the time this one is over. So yeah, these are a team who to watch this year. The rivalries, obviously, with the service side, you've got Army and Navy there, and then they're based in Colorado. So you have the rivalries with Colorado and Colorado State. I'll go into them more details later when we go through Colorado State. So we'll get back to that. The coach, Troy Calhoun, in his 16th season. So this is an offensively minded coach. He was a mixture of quarterback coach and offensive coordinator, first at Ohio, that's just Mac, Ohio, and Wake Forest. Got NFL experience as well. He was an offensive coordinator and quarterback coach with the Houston Texans, and he was an assistant with the Denver Broncos before he joined Air Force, this is his first head coach gig, although he's been doing it for a long time. And Calhoun, he's been a model of consistent success for a service team. He has 10 winning seasons in his 15, and only one of the losing seasons was really a blowout. It was a 2-win season. The rest of them are near enough 500. So he's never been blown out in all but one season. And at the minute, they're on a really good run. 2 of the last 3 seasons have yielded double-digit wins for them. And the only one that didn't was the COVID year, which was shortened for them. I think they only played about 6 games, so you can't really count that. So really, the last 2 full seasons, they're coming off double-digit win seasons. He's only got 1 conference title to his name. Technically they shared 1 last year, but they lost it on a tiebreaker. But he's got a 6-5 bowl record as well, which is pretty decent, again, for a service team. So they may not get the conference title or the wins, but what they are incredibly hard to beat, and they're consistently better than average, which speaks to how he develops players at this level, because the talent pool, Ryan, is tiny for service teams. So for him, with a roster strength which is usually ranked well down in the hundreds every year, to constantly churn out winning sides that can win bowl games, he's done a hell of a good job here for them.
Yep. When you get teams like this that can't attract big names because they don't really do NIL, and you don't join these schools to study, you join them to study and then join the forces, like these aren't just messing about. You get disciplined kids. Air Force, for me, always very few penalties. They play smart, disciplined football. They do not shoot themselves in the foot. They will not rack up many penalties on a year. Without even guessing, they will be one of the least penalised in a season, just at a guess, because I've watched them and they're very disciplined. They're tough. Like I say, some of their linebackers I've seen the last few years have been fantastic. Their safeties, they play tough physical, and they stop the run really well. That is what the bread and butter is. Like I say, they will run the ball heavy and they will stop the run. And if you can do those 2 things, you can win football games, because that is a recipe. And they're really, it's not always most pleasing on the eye, but of all the academies, they do have a better brand of football than the other 2, Navy and Army. They do know how to throw it, and they have managed to find players that can be in an offense that is balanced. And not all of the other schools can say that. So I'd say maybe, like I said, they don't have that title win and they're not as well known as Army and Navy, but they're certainly up there for one of the better standards and brands of football.
I tell you what, there are a lot of teams who would kill to be consistently over 500 and get into bowl games. There are a lot of teams who would take that right now. Just a quick shout out in the chat. Ken Stout has joined, said hi guys. Lions Lee is in there. He says what up gents, what up dough to you both. Thank you for joining us this evening. In answer to your question, Ryan, you're absolutely right. I was going to do it in the strength section in a minute, but they were 4th in the country when it came to penalties against last season. So yeah, they were pretty much the best when it came to not giving away penalties, which is huge. If you're going to be beaten, then I'd rather be beaten by a team that's more talented than me than rather me screwing it up by just giving away loads of penalties. That would infuriate me. So you're right. So yeah, let's get into the team a bit. So the quarterback is Hazik Daniels, this is his third season, and as Ryan again has already mentioned, unlike the other service sides, Air Force throw the ball with regularity in comparison. And given that the head coach used to be a quarterback coach a lot of the time, maybe you can understand why he's better at developing them. So Daniels, he went 52 of 104 last season, so it's only a 50% completion rate, but really that's expected given that he's not really a full-time throwing quarterback and he's going to rush the ball a little more. You're not going to get elite completion numbers, but the numbers were good. 1,184 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but this quarterback rating was 162, which is really damn high. He rushed for 734 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground as well. So that's, you're always going to be a good ground winner when you're in a triple option system as a quarterback. The strengths of this Air Force team, so again, they're the best team when it comes to running the ball right now. So as a triple option side, the running game is your oxygen. If you don't have a run game and that oxygen is cut off, your team dies because you simply can't do anything else because you're not designed to do anything else. The quarterback is experienced. Like I say, he's coming back for his 3rd or 4th season now. So, he's got a legitimate dual threat ability about him. He can throw it, he can run it, which is vital. The offensive line is returning 6 guys who have over 350 snaps of experience from last season alone. So they played jumbo a lot, hence why they got 6 guys with so many snaps on the roster there. And they're returning their top 6 rushing players as well. So basically, their entire running offense is back, the one that got them to where they were last season. It's really dangerous, it's really experienced. They were ranked 41st nationally in offensive run success last year. Defense was pretty good. They ranked 10th in the nation in defensive run success. So not only do they run the ball well, but they also shut the ball down well. Like Ryan says, the linebackers hit hard, the defensive linemen hit hard. They turned the ball over. They ranked 26th in turnover margin. So they got the ball out a lot and got it back to their offense and really grinded teams down. And like I say, the discipline's there. They're 4th in the country when it comes to penalties against. In terms of the weaknesses of the side, now the defense may have issues this year. So their defensive coordinator, John Rodzinski, they've lost him to Virginia. And he's been very steady in building that defense to how good it's been at Air Force. So it remains to be seen how he does. They've promoted from within. Their inside linebacker coach, Brian Knorr, takes over. Obviously, he knows the system, he knows how it works, but of course, he's not the guy who's implemented it. There's a big difference between being a coordinator in the system and then running the whole thing. The first issue he does have to sort is the defensive line. They're really lacking there. There's just one guy who's played more than 270 snaps. So there's a lot of inexperience on that line at the minute. They've lost 1,500 snaps in the secondary as well on just 2 players. The passing defense was really good for a service team, so they're going to need to replace those as well. But I mean, outside of that, Air Force are in pretty decent shape this year. I mean, they keep developing the guys and bringing them through. So outside of a few lost snaps, they've got what they need in their rushing attack. The defense is good enough. Like you say, there's no reason they can't go for that title.
No, I fully expect them to push on this year. Like I said, they want double digits again. That's very doable, and they will want to. They'll want to make up for that loss to Utah State as well. Like I said, they will. That will upset them. And a lot of their schools like this, a lot of the players they don't declare for the draft because a lot of them have got no intention of playing pro football because they're going to join the Air Force and will need a waiver anyway. So a lot of them will stay for 4 or 5 years and they will play every year and they'll just graduate school. They don't declare early because none of them really ever have any draft stock. So that's the one thing about a military academy. You don't lose many players. There isn't much turnover. So to return the entire offensive line and all your backs, it doesn't surprise me. And I expect them to be running over teams and bulldozing some guys again this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the schedule sits out pretty well for them. So they start at home against Northern Iowa and Colorado. Then they're on the road to Wyoming. Then they're at home to Nevada and Navy in the inter-service match. On the road to Utah State and UNLV. At home to Boise State. Then they have a bye. Then 3 of the last 4 games are at home in a row. So they've got Army, New Mexico and Colorado State. And then they finish the season away at San Diego State. But I mean, 4 games in the first 5 at home. The road trip is Wyoming, which we're going to talk about them later, is not the challenge it's been in some of the recent years. That schedule sets up really well for them to get some wins early, get the confidence going, and really take it to the league this year.
Yeah, the only games that worry me if I'm them there is probably Navy, Army, and Boise State. They should win everything else around it. They're the only 3 games that could offer any trump, but that is a very favourable schedule. Like I said, they will roll over Colorado and Northern Iowa, I think. Like I said, they'll start quickly, and then they'll finish quickly as well. So just before the bye, if they get into the bye and they're unbeaten, they're on for it. They could have an entire unbeaten season. So that is fallen really well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think it is certainly on the cards. If they get those first 2 games right, then the world is their oyster for this season. The player to watch, I've highlighted the linebacker Vince Sanford. So he had a really big 2021. He's 6'1", 210 pounds, had 59 tackles, 17 tackles for a loss, 9.5 sacks, 3 passes defended, 4 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. This guy has the speed to get in the backfield, and he has the toughness to hit and rip that ball out. I mean, from the outside linebacker spot, that is a lot of productivity for one season, and I expect him to show up big, because that Air Force defense is going to hit hard again. So yeah, Vince Sanford, the linebacker, a name to keep an eye out for. Right, we will move it on, and the team you want to talk about a bit more here, Ryan. So it is the Boise State Broncos, obviously kings of the division only 2 years ago. Didn't really show up to defend their title last year. It was a bit of a disappointing year by their standards. Established in 1933, they play at the Albertson Stadium. The 2021 record was 7-5. It was 5-3 in the Mountain West, so just a shade over 500 in conference and overall. I mean, we sort of expected them to almost retain it last year, but they never really looked capable of that from week 1.
No, and we're going to talk about him, but that's because the quarterback is very average. They have prided themselves on quarterback players. I don't rate the quarterback. The numbers are there, but I've watched him play games. He makes critical mistakes. Like I said, the game against UCF, I think he threw a game-sealing interception. They should have won that game when they didn't, and they let it slip away. So, makes very costly errors, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does indeed. So the rivalries for Boise State, the big one is against Fresno State, and they play for the milk can. Yes, these 2 teams really do play for a trophy that is an actual milk can. You know those tall, like, cylindrical containers that you transport milk in? You know, like the really old-fashioned things? Yeah, they fight over one of those. So the idea for this trophy, it's an interstate rivalry. This was hatched up by 2 dairy groups that decided they wanted to get involved with the local programs. So, random fact, California is number 1 in dairy producing in America. Idaho is number 4, so they're both big dairy producers. So the South Valley Dairy Group began raising money for the Bulldogs in 2001. The Bronco Dairy Boosters began contributing to Boise State in 2005. Between members of both organizations, they started lobbying for a traveling trophy. They eventually got their way, and they decided what better way than a symbol of this rivalry to make it something based on the dairy industry, so they chose a milk can. I guess at least they didn't do like a life-size ornamental cow, or although that could be quite fun. But
they should have done a cow trophy. A cow trophy would have been so much better. That it would have looked so good. But do you know what? This is a rivalry that everyone benefits. It's not in bad blood.
No.
It's to promote business. Like I say, it does well, and obviously they made money off of the boosters. So it's beneficial to both sides to keep it going as long. These 2 teams will never want to not do this or split up or go separate ways.
No, you're right there. It is one of the more friendly ones in this division. Boise lead the series 16-7, so they've been a little bit more dominant on it over the years, but Fresno have had their wins over them. They've also got rivalries against Idaho, that is dormant, because Idaho are down in the FCS. They play for the Governor's Trophy. Boise leads that series 22-17-1. They also have a rivalry against Nevada, which Boise leads 30-14. I'll talk about that more later when we talk about Nevada. So the coach Andy Avalos. This is his second season. He is 40 years old and he's been trained up as a defensive coach. So he was a 6-year coach at Boise State, started with the defensive line, moved on to the linebackers, then moved to defensive coordinator. Actually trained up NFL talents like DeMarcus Lawrence and Leighton Van Der Esch in his time. The unit's always ranked very high nationally, and those are some good players he helped send up to the NFL. Oregon came calling. He moved there to be the DC after that. He only went for 1 year as defensive coordinator, but when he arrived, the defense was ranked 49th nationally. In one season, he turned them into the 9th ranked defense in the league. He really did a hell of a job with them there, and he was also the guy who got the commitment from Kayvon Thibodeau, obviously the edge rusher who's just been drafted this year. He was the guy who convinced him to go to Oregon, but Boise State came calling back for him just 12 months after he'd gone. They were looking for a new head coach, and he's returned back there to take up the job. Obviously, the first year last year saw them go 7-5. The defense ranked 45th nationally in total defense. So, this is a guy who, over his career, has, excelled in defense. He's worked his way up the ranks. He's produced some good NFL talent as a, just a regular coach, and now he's really been smashing it as he's got to the higher echelons.
Yep, he's been around the block. Like I say, last season wasn't easy, but it never was going to be. I believe Bronco Mendenhall was the long-time Boise State head coach, I think. He went on to a Power 5 job. And since then, things have not been easy. Like I say, last year had a lot of ups, had a lot of downs, a lot of transition. Like I say, moving into a new offense. Last few years, they've lost a lot of players to the draft as well. So with that, they've been talented. They have had guys drafted. So, yeah, but he's got a big job on his hands. It's not going to be easy to get back in title contention. Like I said, they've found it difficult last year. Teams were always playing catch-up with Boise State, but now they've caught up. And now it's time to get a reaction.
Exactly, but, given what he's done in his career so far, you would say the odds may be a little bit more in his favour there. If he can get that defence even higher, then there's a lot of teams in this conference who live by the defence. The offences can be rubbish, but the defences are that good that it carries them to titles, so that's what he'll be doing first there. Det Fan Man's joined us. He says, hey fellas, hey to you. Chrome says next few weeks going to be great. Got Hard Knocks, Madden 23, absolutely. This is all ramping up now and it's going to be such fun. It's been a long off season. I'll just quickly check Twitch. No, we are all good. So, the quarterback. You mentioned him there. Neither of us really like him. There are a few quarterbacks, a few transferred into this conference who we don't like either, so we can throw shade at some of them. Hank Backmeyer. This is his 4th season. It will be his 2nd as the starter. So he threw for 3,079 passing yards last year at a 63% completion clip, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He does not run the ball. He is not a rushing quarterback. The offensive line was very bad last year. In fairness to him, he was more agile than we've seen him in recent years, mainly because he was running for his life a lot of the time. He's had to sort of quicken his decision-making ability, and it leads to a few bad throws here and there, but he did alright last year. But like you say, you've always have this nagging feeling that there's something just not quite there with him.
No, like I say, tries too hard, does sometimes. Like I say, it's always decision-making. Like I said, I'll go back to the UCF game. He made some really bad decisions. There's one, I think it's a play where he scrambles and he throws a horrible interception that should just, you want that throwback every day of the year. And it was very costly in the end of the game. And that is kind of what you get from him. You'll get some really good play, and then you'll get something bizarre. Like I say, when you think about QBs in the last few years, they've had the likes of Brett Ripien, who was really good. Had a really long stint there. Taysom Hill, who also was a big name there. They had a good offense. Last year, from one thing I saw from them, that the offense wasn't very good. They were relying on that defense. They were struggling. And they said the run game, it don't support him. The offensive line doesn't help. The run game has dried up. So it's very much a one-dimensional offense now.
Yeah. And that's, like I say, that is not contained to just them in this division. There are a lot of teams riding their defense at the minute. Fan Man goes, yeah, just 1 month until General Booty debuts for Oklahoma. I admire the dedication to General Booty, Det Fan Man. Hopefully he gets some snaps for you this year. So the strengths of this team, as Ryan's already mentioned, so the defense will be the backbone of this team going forward. They were ranked 29th and 19th in the FBS when it came to defensive rush and pass success respectively. They're returning a whopping 85% of their production on defense. That's 7th nationally, so they're basically getting back the same defense they had last year. It's a year more experienced and it has the potential to get even better. On offense, the passing game was actually top 50, believe it or not. I don't know what that says maybe about some of the other offenses around, but you know, the quarterback, he is seasoned. They are returning 4 of 5 members of the offensive line. Does give them a good foundation to build on, but as I said, the offensive line did, it wasn't great last year. Backmeyer had to run for his life some of the time, but experience does count. So continuity. 4 of the 5 guys coming back on the offensive line, it helps. The team ranked top 25 in turnover margin and penalties, so they're very disciplined and they get the ball back very often and they don't cough it up so much. So great foundation for them to build on there. Now the weaknesses. So the draft took the star wide receiver Khalil Shakir. Ryan, you were absolutely massive fan of him. I'll just get to the end of this and you can just say what sort of a loss this is for them. They ranked 108th when it came to explosive plays on offense, and Shakir was really the only deep threat they had, so they're going to need to find some more guys who can get downfield now, because if they can't offer a threat downfield, defenses are going to start coming up on them and cramping them a bit, and that passing defense that served them so well with Backmeyer, it's safe, it's not dangerous, that comes under threat there as well. They struggle to run the football, which is weird for them. They rank 91st in offensive rush success. They've lost the goal line back Andrew Van Buren. He led the team in touchdowns. He's gone to Portland State, of all places, which was weird. They do return the lead in rusher George Halani, but they need to be better there. The defense needs to get more aggressive. The defense it ranked pretty well, but when it came to attacking the quarterback, they were 90th in tackles for loss, 64th in sacks, so they need to bring more pressure against run games and against quarterbacks. That's something they've got to fix. And the mentality as well. There were 3 conference games last year. They lost by 1 score. Ryan already mentioned they surrendered a 21-0 lead to UCF. They lost that game. Mentally, they've got to get a little bit tougher there. So there are some issues for them to work out. But Khalil Shakir, he is like a one-of-a-kind guy for a team like this, and he's going to be hard to replace.
Yeah. I don't think the offense is going to be doing much this year. He was the star receiver. He played running back. He was also punting and kick returns. This guy had like thousands of total yards in a year. They lost Andrew Van Buren. I remember when he transferred. He went to Portland State because they didn't use him properly. He got fed up of not getting carries and just doing the dirty work. George Halani, good back. They've had a lot of success in the last few years with Polynesian players. I think he's a Hawaiian back, but don't quote me on that. He has run the ball well in the last few years, but it kind of dried up last year. I fear for this offense. I don't know if they can replace Khalil Shakir, and I just don't have faith in Backmeyer. Like I say, he'll draft eligible soon, but so far I haven't seen anything from him that makes anyone think that he will go through the draft process. So, like I say, it could be another struggle year.
Yeah, and the schedule doesn't sit well for them at all. So 3 of the first games are on the road. So they go on the road to Oregon State, then to New Mexico. They're at home to UT Martin, the FCS game. Then they're on the road to the University of Texas El Paso, UTEP. Then they're at home to San Diego State and Fresno State. They've got a bye. Then when they come back from there, they're away at Air Force, at home to Colorado State, at home to BYU. Then they're away to Nevada, away to Wyoming, and at home to Utah State. Now, there are some teams to be had here this year, but sort of some of the weaker teams they're travelling on the road to, and the home schedule's difficult. I mean, BYU, Fresno State, San Diego State, these are some of the better teams in this division. That is not easy for them.
No, that's a bad schedule. Those first few games, fair enough, but like last 6 games, on paper, they might not win any of them. Everything from BYU onwards, they could lose. And I see them losing a lot of conference games this year. The schedule does not bode well. Like I say, they could be looking at another 6-7 win year, which for them ain't good enough.
No.
And their head coach will be on a very short reign. I know he's been there before, but they have another bad year. I am not going to give him that much grace just because he's been there before. They're supposed to be one of the big boys, and right now it ain't happening. So it's a big year. He could be on the hot seat very quickly.
Yeah, there's a power void at the top of this division, at the conference at the minute. Like you say, teams like Boise, who used to be up there, will want to be up there to take advantage of it. So, yeah, a lot of these guys might be getting short shrift in the head coaching jobs. The player to watch, just to finish this off, I've picked out the safety J.L. Skinner. He's 6'4", 218 pounds of Mountain West wrecking ball. So his 2021, he had 92 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, 2 interceptions, 3 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. Basically, you can do what you like with him. You can bring him up to the line of scrimmage to go quarterback hunting, because got the sacks and the tackles for loss there. Hits hard in the run game, and he can also ball hawk when he's in the secondary. He got the interceptions and the passes defended as well. The big issue he has to work on is his coverage. There are some issues there, but if you see a noticeable improvement in that this year, then he's going to go from draftable prospect to possibly high round draftable prospect very quickly, and you know how much I love my safeties. So yeah, JL Skinner, the safety, the guy to watch for at Boise State. Now, moving on, we have a fun one here because we have an in-conference defection to talk about. We're of course talking about the Colorado State Rams. They were established 1893, play at the Canvas Stadium. Apparently it's a really pretty picture there. 2021 season, they were 3-9. They went 2 of 6 in the Mountain West Conference. I'll talk about the rivalries first, then we'll talk about the coach, where we all want to get to. So the rivalries, obviously Colorado. The Rocky Mountain Showdown, the in-state rivalry, stretches back for years. In recent years, they've been playing it at Mile High in Denver, the NFL ground. There's obviously greater capacity there. They compete for the Centennial Cup. And would you believe, Ryan, it's an actual trophy? How boring is that? It's just a regular trophy. I mean, after all the stuff we go through on here, regular trophy's really boring. Colorado have traditionally dominated this rivalry. They lead the series 67 to 22 to 2. So yeah, that is a big lopsided border there. And then the big one they have, the rivalry with Wyoming. They call it the Border War. Now the states are next door neighbours. The campuses are about 65 miles apart, hence the name, the Border War. The rivalry dates back to Thanksgiving in 1899, so the first ever matchup between the two schools, and it was the first game Colorado State, they were actually known as Colorado Agricultural at the time, had ever played outside of the state. Big disagreement arose between the officials there, resulted in a controversial ending to the game. At the time, the officials were provided by the schools, so there was always lots of cheating going on there. The game concluded when a Wyoming forfeit, because Colorado sort of accused them of winning via an illegal play, and Wyoming turned around and said, we don't care about the rule book, we win. And after that they refused to play one another. Wyoming said they didn't give a damn for the rules. They instructed the Wyoming team to run in a touchdown when Colorado walked off in protest. The touchdown went in, they won the game, set off a massive brawl between the two teams, and then, like I say, they refused to play each other afterwards until official apologies were, announced by the teams. However, they ended up playing each other the next year, even despite that happening, so I don't know what went on, but this has been a really nasty rivalry. They play for the Bronze Boot. The Bronze Boot has a really interesting history behind it. So, in 1968, the Reserve Officers Training Corps detachment of the respective schools initiated this Bronze Boot. So they have like an officer training corps thing at all these schools out here. The boot in question was worn in the Vietnam War by a captain named Dan Romero. So he was a college graduate and an army instructor at Colorado State in the late 60s. So what they did is they got his boot, which he wore in Vietnam, and they bronzed it, turned it into a trophy, and they play for that every year, which is really kind of interesting. It's just this really old-fashioned American soldier's boot. Really nice, really on a nice thing there. So, yeah, every year they play each other now. The game ball is carried between campuses, so the 60 miles on the day. One of the detachments of the ROTC units runs it up to the border, passes it over to the other side. They run it the rest of the way to the other ground, and then it's guarded in the stadium until the team wins, and then it is transferred over. So very interesting there, but these two teams don't like one another very much. The series history is 59, 49 and 5. It's very closely contested, it's very heated, but different. A boot this time.
Yeah, it's better than the cup. Like it's interesting. Yeah, it's funny how like 2 or 3 of the most irrelevant teams in the FBS actually have a good rivalry, because all 3 of them, Colorado State, Wyoming, not very good. Not been very good for very long, but at least they have a good proper rivalry. At least they don't like each other, and at least they make some effort as well. Like to run 60 miles of a boot, that's a bit extravagant, but I like it. Saves on fuel at least if they jog it. I wouldn't like to be the person that has to run 30 miles with a bronze boot. It must weigh a fucking ton.
Yeah, it's a decent size, so I just found it really interesting. That's, yeah, all these weird things, and it all started off over a fallout 120 odd years ago, and they still hate one another today because of it. It's good fun, but anyhow, we'll move it on. So the coach, Merritt James Norvell III, or as we all know him, J. Norvell. This is his first season there because he has just defected over from Nevada in the same conference. He is 59 years old. He is an offensive coach who has coached just about every position on offense apart from running backs. He's coached at Iowa, Northern Iowa, Wisconsin, Iowa State, Nebraska, UCLA, Oklahoma, Texas, and Arizona State as well, actually. And he was a wide receivers coach with the Colts up in the NFL for 3 years, and he was a tight end coach for the Raiders as well. So he's been around a little bit. Only when he was hired by Nevada, that was his first job. He got the gig in 2017. He turned Nevada into a really good program. He got 4 winning seasons in 5 out of them, 2 bowl wins, although it's not translated into conference wins. But the conference rival change he's had this year, that was quite shocking. So he's come out and said it was down to a lack of support from Nevada in trying to establish a winning conference side, and that, despite being a much worse side at the minute, Colorado State can give him the resources that he needs to build the team to win the conference. And on the surface, he might be right. Nevada invests about $10 million into their football team, whereas Colorado State invests about $26 million. But on the flip side, he went also from being the worst paid head coach in the conference to the best paid by a decent amount as well. So yeah, support for my team, support for my bank check as well. So anyhow, whatever the reason, he's got a huge building job to do there. He's never won a conference title. He's got to change the entire way that this team plays because he runs an explosive pass heavy offense, whereas Steve Adazio, who was the last guy at Colorado State, he runs a run heavy smash mouth style at Colorado State. So all the players they've got there are there designed to run the ball, whereas Jay Norvell is going to come in and get them doing the air raid basically. And just to add salt to the wound, 11 players have followed him from Nevada. So not only has he left Nevada in the lurch, he's taken half the side with him. This guy is a character, and I don't fully believe that it's due to the support for his team that he made this move.
I don't. Colorado State are crap. The only good thing about Colorado State last year was Trey McBride, and if he's the star of your offense, that says that you play a poor style of football, because everything went through him, and if it didn't go through him, they didn't stand a chance. So yeah, he's talking crap. Like I say, I'm not sure even 11 Nevada players will make this team any better right now, but I'm sure the money incentive will sure sweeten the deal for him.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure how well this is going to go. So the quarterback is Clay Millen. This is his second season. He's one of the guys who's followed Norvell from Nevada. He's attempted 2 passes in his collegiate career so far, so there is absolutely nothing to base a scouting report on. I can't give you a scouting report, I'm sorry. A guy who's passed it twice. There is not much to say. The only thing is he's going to be obviously familiar with the pass-heavy expectations that Norvell has of his team, but he is a first-time starter, and he is going to get heavily tested because there are some really good defenses in this league who will eat you alive if you even stop for a second to think about things. So you play hard or you bust in this division, and for a guy who's not started before, he's going to a team who ain't the best, whose offensive line is not used to pass protecting. This is going to be a damn tough assignment for him.
Oh yeah, they're going to get blasted in conference play. This could be ugly. This could be a very ugly year for Colorado State. Offensive line is going to protect the quarterback. They don't know what they're doing. The QB doesn't know what he's doing. Like I say, he's ain't got any experience of starting. So all teams are going to do is blitz and going to get straight after him. Like I said, they're going to just try to take away anything they've got there. Like I said, they lost Trey McBride, who was their only go-to weapon. So I hope the money is going to be worth it, because I'd want a hell of a lot of money to try to turn this side round. On offense, it's going to be really difficult to try get them to gel quickly. Like I say, with defectors, he'll be relying very heavily on the Nevada transfers. They are going to have to really take up the slack. And I hope a lot of them, I hope he's brought an offensive line with him that can help pass pro, because if they just know how to run block, that poor kid, 2 pass attempts might get killed this year.
Yeah, agreed. So the strengths and weaknesses of this team, you're going to get bored of me saying this, but the strength is the defense on this team. So they literally played their ass off last year to prop them up. They still won a few games last year. It wasn't down to the offense, though. So they ranked 25th in defensive rush success. They ranked 4th nationally in defensive passing success. So they were highly effective stopping teams throwing on them. The starters on the defensive line and linebacker are very high quality and are going to provide this team a base to build on. So, like so many other coaches in the Mountain West, he has a defense to work with, but can he get the offense to help out? The weaknesses of this team, and we've mentioned it already, but this is a huge philosophical change for this team. Colorado State last year ran the ball 57% of the time. Probably would have been more if they weren't chasing games every week. 63% of the passes went to tight ends and running backs. Norvell last season, on the other hand, 63% of the time he passed the ball, and 66% of those passes went to wide receivers. So this is a complete cultural change. He doesn't use running backs and tight ends, he uses wide receivers. Now, with all the transfers coming with him from Nevada, this might expedite the process a little bit, but, he's lost a lot of his elite weapons in the draft. He's not bought the good ones with him. Romeo Daubs, etc., they've gone to the draft, so he's not bringing the elite talent from Nevada with him. These are all guys who don't have a lot of experience. They know his way, but they ain't proven in the game yet. On defense, like I said, it's pretty good. The only thing they have to get better on is against explosive plays. They ranked 107th in that category, so they were burned down the field quite often. The secondary needs a little bit of help there. The depth is major thin. I said the starters are really good, but behind that, there's not a lot of depth, so injuries can quickly turn that defense from really good into really bad. The offense last year, the rushing game last season was horrendous. The passing game was very, it wasn't much better. He's brought his OC with him, so Matt Mummelwith, I think it's Matt Mummelwith, or Matt Moomer, sorry. Matt Moomer, the OC from Nevada's come with him, so you know what they're going to do. They're going to try and implement the air raid as quick as possible. How's it going to work year one with a completely raw quarterback? We don't know. And I mean, even if they did, by some stretch, get it working early, he's not won a title at Nevada with that air raid, so he's got to really keep the defense going there. I mean, it seems like too much to sort in 1 year.
Yeah, I'll be amazed if they win more games than they did last year. I think it's time to temper their expectations very bad. They're one of the bottom feeders, to be honest, in that conference right now, especially in that division, and it's probably not going to change this year. Like I said, you can't rely on a good defense and a makeshift air raid offense to try turn things around quickly. So even if you bring a QB, like I said, that he knows his receivers, can his offensive line keep him upright? Is he even a good quarterback? Do the receivers want to be there? Like I say, have they just followed the head coach, but do they actually want to be at Colorado State? Are they actually going to buy in and gel with the other teammates?
Yeah.
A total cluster, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy Clark's joined us in the chat. He says, Colorado have nothing with McBride gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was such a big part. Like I say, 60% of their passes went to tight ends and running backs, and Trey McBride was the tight end. That's kind of ruined that. The receivers are just not as tested, as battle hardened. It's not the way they play. So this philosophical difference is going to be huge. And the schedule is, well, the road schedule's nasty. So first game of the season, they're away at Michigan. Yeah.
Oh, that poor quarterback.
They're away at the Michigan Wolverines next year. Well, obviously Ajabo and Hutch are gone, but you figure Michigan have probably got something else lined up in the edge rushing room. Then they're at home to Middle Tennessee, but I mean, Middle Tennessee had the most takeaways on defense of any team in college football last year, so you got a rookie quarterback trying to throw it and he's not used to it. That could be an upset. Then they're away at Washington State, so that's Pac-12 opposition, which is never easy on the road. At home to Sacramento State. Then they have a bye. After the bye, they're away at Nevada. They're at home to Utah. That's Pac-12 Utah and Hawaii. Then they're away at Boise State, San Jose State. They're at home to Wyoming, away at Air Force, and at home to New Mexico. That road schedule is brutal. You're away at Air Force, San Jose State, Boise State, Michigan, Washington State. That's brutal.
That's a 2-10. Sacramento State, I think, are FCS, and UNLV, who will come to. We'll talk about them. Like I said, I see 2 winnable games.
They haven't even got UNLV on this schedule.
Oh, who was last?
New Mexico.
Oh, maybe. So they might have 2 winnable games. Like I say, I'll be looking at the over-under at Michigan dropping 50 or 60 on them. Yeah. They are going to get a very rude awakening.
Yeah, they are indeed. To finish off this, the player to watch, you'll notice there's a lot of defenders here because, this league is a little lacking when it comes to its offensive quality. The linebacker, Cameron Carter, he's in his 5th season. He's a tackling machine at the heart of the Rams defense. 6'2", 230 pounds. In 2021, he had bang on 100 tackles. He had a further 8.5 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks, an interception, 2 passes defended, a fumble recovery. As all-round linebackers in the Mountain West go, there is probably no one better than this guy. He's probably the best all-round linebacker in the division. So Cameron Carter, the linebacker, the guy to watch there. Right, now we're going to move on into some of the more questionable teams in this league here. So we've got the New Mexico Lobos up next. And I learnt the other day that Lobos is the Spanish word for wolves, I believe. So technically, they're the New Mexico Wolves. I didn't actually know that before. Established in 1892, they play at the University Stadium. Their 2021 season, they went 3-9, but they were just 1-7 in the Mountain West. They kind of got knocked about a bit in conference. The rivalries are with New Mexico State. They call it the Rio Grande Rivalry. Obviously, the Rio Grande separates where they are. New Mexico leads 73-33-5 in that. So State's been getting its ass kicked. This is one of the few good rivalries for New Mexico. They've also got a rivalry with Arizona. Now, the teams used to compete over what was called the Kit Carson Rifle. So from 1938 to 1990, the winner of the rivalry took ownership of it. So the gun is a Springfield Model 1866 rifle. It's rumoured to have once belonged to the famous frontier scout Kit Carson. The game scores from each game were carved into the stock of the rifle, but it was discontinued in 1997. The schools thought that, due to the sort of the association with the rifle due to concerns of history of violence against Native Americans, they were going to stop using it, and it's not been used since. So there's no current trophy there, but Arizona lead that series 44-20-3. So yeah. Got guns involved in this now. There's one still in circulation later, but this one not in there. But the trophy, the lot of trophies we have here, it expands as to what they have.
Yeah, I mean, with no offense to someone that's listening, like, too many people are bothered about the gun laws anyway. You might as well have an interesting trophy. Like you say, if anyone actually took offence to it or not, that actually sounds like they're maybe celebrating someone famous. I know they don't play each other too often there, but yeah, New Mexico State. New Mexico close like Albuquerque, that's quite a close rivalry. And if anyone don't remember, New Mexico, that's where Glover Quinn came from. He was a Lobo, wasn't he?
I believe so, yeah. One of the more famous Lobos in recent years. So the coach, I don't know how much you know your coaching staff from your own team, but his name's Danny Gonzalez. It's his 3rd season. Spent 6 years at San Diego State as a mixture of safeties coach and then became the defensive coordinator before he made the move over to Arizona State, first as defensive coordinator, then he was the assistant head coach as well as the defensive coordinator before he made the move over to New Mexico in 2020. The first 2 seasons have been rough. He took over a team that really are perennial bottom feeders in this Mountain Conference. He's 5-14 overall and 3-12 in conference. I don't know if you really remember him from his days at Arizona State, but this is a tough gig for him, and he's going to need a lot of time to be able to turn it round there.
Yeah, he left Arizona State just as the team turned to shit. Like I said, he was one of Herm's right-hand man before Marvin Lewis came for the NFL to be an executive. He had a lot of say. And in that time there, Arizona State, we sent a lot of players to the NFL draft. We had some really good years going back like last 2 to 5 years. Or before the last 2 years before that, there was a couple of years period where we were good. We were contending in the Pac-12 and he was doing good work. We sent guys to the draft. So it's a shame that he left. Like I said, he's decided to go it alone, be a head coach. And yeah, you couldn't have picked a much harder starting gig. He's really gone to try prove himself, and I applaud that. It's brave because they're not a big footballing school. I'm pretty sure, like New Mexico, that they play a lot of basketball. I think they do pretty well in that.
Yeah, it's like a lot of these teams that don't do well, but there's always one speciality they have that keeps them in their respective conference. Kind of like Duke with basketball, isn't it? And that everyone has their own speciality. So yeah, the team. Yeah, it's not in great shape at the minute. So the quarterback is Miles Kendrick. This is his 4th season. He's just transferred in from the Kansas Jayhawks. So career completion rating of 61%, but he's only thrown for 853 yards, 9 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's got 105 yards and a touchdown on the ground. But over 4 years, that is very, very little. But New Mexico got hurt last year. They went through 4 quarterbacks last year due to injury. They ended the season fielding a graduate manager at quarterback. So, I mean, it can't really get any worse than 4 players and a graduate. We had the one with the Gamecocks, USC, last year.
Zeb Nolan.
These fielded a graduate manager to end the year. But, I mean, 4 years back up at Kansas, that doesn't kind of inspire you that they're going to get better all of a sudden.
Not really, because we've no disrespect to the Jayhawks for the last 3 or 4 years. They have been one of the worst sides in the FBS. They've caused a major upset last year, like I say, and they've come close the last few years, but they are a big basketball school. They are not very good at football. And when I heard 62%, I thought, oh, and then you said 800 yards in 4 years, like, oh,
yeah.
So he don't get used. So yeah. I don't think they'll be using just one QB this year.
I was just like trying to, sweeten it up a little bit before the news. But I mean, I've started with the weaknesses here. Wait until you hear the stats of this offense last year. So they were dead last in total offense in the entire country. The only team in the FBS to be sub 3,000 offensive yards on the season. They only got 2,819 offensive yards. The only team to be sub 4 yards per offensive play. They got 3.89 yards on average per offensive play. They were last, and they were one of only 2 teams to have less than 20 offensive touchdowns last year. They had 15 touchdowns in 13 or 12 and 13 games. The other team had 19, so they were last by 4. They were last in offensive yards per game. They only had 235 offensive yards per game. That was last by over 20 yards. They were dead last in both offensive rushing success and offensive passing success. That was 130th for both. And their running back, Aaron Dumas, who was the only offensive player who got over 390 yards in total offense last season, has transferred out to Washington. The roster strength is ranked 129th of 131 this season. I mean, yikes.
So this is when we found the worst team in the nation statistically. The only way is up. They are the worst offense in football. So everything here to this season can only get better. I'm being hopefully optimistic because Christ, it can't get much worse. Averaging just over a touchdown a game, like I say, if it gets any worse, like they might as well go to FCS. They must be very much on that cusp of dropping out of the FBS, playing like that.
Well, it was funny because the guys I listened to for some of the research on these, one of them said, "Oh, we should drop to the FCS," and the other one automatically goes, "Yeah, but there's probably about 30 teams down there who are better than them at the minute." So, it's not the drop that it used to be. But I'm not even finished yet. So the offensive line, 2 players returning this year who have more than 90 snaps of experience. That is it. Just 90 snaps, like a couple of games. They got 2 guys who've played more than that. For year 3 of a rebuild, I mean, this might be a blessing that you've lost so many of an offense that were bad, but you are starting from near absolute zero with a new offensive line. Defense, they ranked 80th against the run, so teams ran over them a lot. They are experienced, and that maybe is a glimmer for them. They'll tighten things up, but given the overall state of the team, they're in big trouble. So the strengths of the team, like I said, the defense thankfully is better. So you remember a couple of years ago they got in Rocky Long to be their defensive coordinator. He willingly left San Diego State. He was head coach there. He willingly left to become defensive coordinator at New Mexico. It was a big move, and it's like a really weird one to give up a head coaching job to be a coordinator at such a bad team. So statistically, year on year since he's been there, the defense has got better. Yes, it's a low bar and all, but the pass defense ranked 42nd in the country last year. They're returning most of the secondary who were part of that. So again, if you're trying to find building blocks, that's where you can get it there. And, they've also transferred a guy in who you'll know about as well. So on offense, they're looking for a weapon. They've brought in Jordan Porter from Arizona State. He averages 18 yards per catch. Yes, he's only had about 14 receptions. But if Kendrick can get it going and Jordan Porter can get open, maybe they'll have something going off on offense for them, but that was it for my strengths.
That's where the Pac-12 connections come in, like you say, Danny Gonzalez, because ASU still haven't got the ban yet, but are in trouble at NCAA. Lost like 15, 16 players to the portal, because like I say, things are going so bad there now. So to bring in Jordan Porter doesn't surprise me at all. That is someone that can drastically help an offense that struggles. He didn't get the workload at ASU because we had Ricky Pearsall and Curtis Hodges, so he may flourish there. Like I say, if he's the guy, he'll probably see the targets, and he could be someone that has an okay year if they can just get the ball to him.
Yeah, I agree. So the schedule. Now, I say this, it's kind of worked for them in the best possible way to start with, not that it might be really good, but they've got 3 home games in a row to start. So they play Maine, they play Boise State, and they play UTEP. Whether they'll win them or not, I don't know, but they're at home, so it's an advantage. Then it goes downhill. So they're at LSU, they're at UNLV, then they're at home to Wyoming, then they're away at New Mexico State, then they're at home to Fresno State, then they have a bye. The last 4 weeks, they're away to Utah State, away to Air Force, at home to San Diego State, and then away to Colorado State. I think if they're going to win games next year, it's going to be in those first few weeks, because it sure as hell ain't going to be in the second half of the year.
Yeah, they definitely need some get those early wins. Like I said, they need to chalk up some confidence, because having momentum is a big thing. If they stumble in those few weeks and they, let's say, pick up an injury or things don't go their way in the first few weeks, and 2 or 3 weeks they're winless, it could be an 0-12. It just tumbles, like I say, it can just get out of hand. Like I say, the Lions, the Browns have done it. Momentum is a big thing. They've got to get a win early to settle the nerves, get the monkey off the back. If they do that, maybe they get 3 or 4 wins. If they go through like 3 or 4 weeks without a win, like their chances of getting one further down the line just evaporate.
That's it. That game against Maine at home first week's crucial. If you lose that, then you really are screwed. If you can win that, like you say, momentum. You got UTEP at home. Ain't the highest level of opposition in the world from the CUSA. So, yeah, we'll see with them. The player to watch, defender again. The safety, Jerrick Reed II. on the one part of the team that actually did well last year. So he led the team in tackles with 88 total. He got a tackle for loss as well. He had an interception, 7 passes defended. He's a ball hawk in every sense of the word. In coverage against the run, instincts are really good. Like I say, he recorded 7 pass breakups and an interception in 2021. He had 3 games with at least 10 tackles. The way they line him up allows for favourable matchups in coverage and in run defence. And, you know, he's an all MWC candidate this year. So people are going to throw on them again. There's going to be opportunities there. So Jarek Reed the second, the safety, to watch out for there. Utah State Aggies up next. We have our champions. So, I forgot to mention, we were doing conferences here, so we are going through the Mountain Division at the moment. We're nearly at the end of that now. Oh God, I've lost Utah State. Where the hell are we? Yes, here we go. The Utah State Aggies. So, established 1892, play at the Maverick Stadium. 2021 season, they went 11-3, 6-2 in the Mountain West, and they went and won the whole thing as champions. And no one saw this coming, maybe except their own fans.
Nope, I didn't see it coming. I don't think anyone else saw it coming. Utah State, obviously, people think of Utah State, think of Jordan Love. They were good when Jordan Love were there, but they weren't fantastic. So for him to move on and then suddenly to have their QB just light things up, he found a partnership that was one of the best in the entire country, and teams just couldn't stop it. Like I say, they had an explosive offense. Their defense could be tight and stingy when it could be, or when they had to, they could just go for a straight up shootout and just say, screw it, we're just going to go balls to the wall. And it was a fantastic year. Won't be easy to do again, but pretty historic when you think about they've not had much success in the past.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, no one saw this coming last year. They were predicted to finish 5th in their conference, not in the division, in the conference, which just shows how much they surpassed expectations. But they were a really fun team to watch in the end, and you know, with Utah winning the Pac-12, it was a very, very successful season for the Utah-based side. So the rivalries, like Utah, they have a rivalry with BYU, and this is fought over the old wagon wheel. So much like the Holy War rivalry between Utah and BYU, this rivalry is based around the Church of the Latter-day Saints. BYU is run by them. Utah State has a very large Latter-day Saints student population, so it's kind of a religious thing where they're really, really sort of proud of the place they come from, and they're very loyal towards the universities, and it makes for a good rivalry. Starting in 1981, the two teams usually meet on the first Friday in October. That has significance because it's the same weekend that the Latter-day Saints Church holds its annual Worldwide General Conference, so it's a big symbolic thing for them. BYU leads the series 49-37-3, so it's not completely one-sided. The battle for the old wagon wheel, it's a very important cultural event for them, given the long-standing rivalry between the schools. Many of the families have association at both universities, so it's always really hardly fought. And yes, Ryan, the trophy is an actual big-ass wagon wheel, not like the chocolate things we hear, but like, I think it's like 5 or 6 feet. It's really big.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's about the height of me. Yeah. It's giant spoke wheel like you have on like an old, like a traveller's van, like there, and they just wheel it on in. Yeah. Utah, their rivalries, like you say, very religious. Like you say, you got the Mormonism, you've got the Church of Latter-day Saints. Utah, very big state. They love their football, so I would love to find some way to have Utah, BYU, and Utah State in the same conference, but they all hate each other. They really don't like each other. They just don't want to play each other. They don't want to be friends. So yeah, it's good. They don't often play each other, but the Holy War, this one, it's fun. Like I say, I BYU, one of my very personal favourites, and Utah State, yeah, they've done pretty well in the rivalry as well in the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely they have. And obviously they have the rivalry with Utah as well. It's called the Battle of the Brothers. It is on hold at the minute. Used to be a really big rivalry. This was. They traditionally played it on Thanksgiving. Such was the esteem it was held in. That ended in the late 50s, and they've then since 1961 they've never actually been in the same conference together, so they had to specifically schedule the meetings, and at the time Utah was more interested in fighting it out with BYU in the Holy War. They didn't really care about Utah State as much, so the game really lapsed. The last one was in 2015. There's no further games scheduled. Utah leads the series 79 to 29 to 4, and then the last rivalry for Utah State is Wyoming. This is called Bridges Battle. Now, this is one of the oldest rivalries for both schools. The name was given to the game in 2013. It was announced as the name for the rivalry. It was after American frontiersman Jim Bridger. He was alive between 1804 and 1881. He spent much of his career in the region, and the trophy for this is a 50 caliber Rocky Mountain Hawken rifle. That was announced as the trophy. It's considered to be what Bridger carried back in the day. Utah State leads this one 40 to 27 to 4, but getting the guns out for the trophies in the Mountain West.
It doesn't surprise me, being in like the Rockies, like say the Colorado around Utah, mountainous, cowboys, a lot of livestock. So yeah, there's a lot of famous films set around here where stereotypical everyone carries a big gun. So it doesn't surprise me if it's like a shotgun.
No, absolutely. The coach, one of the more likable guys in this division, one of the better coaches. So this guy's name's Blake Anderson. He's in his second season. He's 53 years old. He's an offensive-minded coach who has coached quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs, as well as been an offensive coordinator, and he's been a run game coordinator as well at a variety of teams before he got his first head coach job at Arkansas State in 2014. So if you were listening to the Sun Belt one that we did a few weeks ago, we were talking about Arkansas State, just how bad they are at this moment in time, and there's very little hope for them. Well, when Anderson was there, it was completely different. In 6 of the 7 seasons, he had winning records, with the odd one out being the last season he was there. But in that time, he took them to a bowl game every season. He won 2 bowl games. He won 3 conference titles and 1 Sun Belt championship. Like I say, just given how bad Arkansas State are at the minute, that just shows you what a hell of a job that he did whilst he was there. But what's even more impressive, he's moved over to Utah State last season. He took over a team that went 1-5 in the COVID-shortened season, and like I say, they were predicted to finish 5th in the conference. Instead, he ended up taking them all the way to the Mountain West Championship, and he won it. And not even that, and if that wasn't enough, they went to their bowl game afterwards, and they beat Oregon State in the bowl game. So a championship, a bowl game win. I mean, how do you top that for a first season as a head coach?
The only way it can get better is go unbeaten. That's the only thing they didn't do.
Yeah.
Like I say, so that it couldn't go much better. Like I say, the bar has been set very high now to try repeat it, try defend the title. Which I'll be more impressed if he can go on and defend the title now, which won't be easy. But yeah, it could not have gone much better. Like I said, the Sky right now is they've got very lofty aspirations. They probably consider themselves as one of the big boys in this conference now. So they've got a target on the back. A lot are going to try and take them out. But yeah, another double-digit win season will probably suffice. Like I say, even if he can't defend his title, the future is bright. And like I say, if they can send some players to the draft as well, they've probably got some guys in here that could get drafted, and they haven't sent too many players in recent years.
No, not at all. You're getting some love from Quirky Zerky in the Twitch chat. First he says wagon wheel equals Pioneers coming west. Yes, it does. He goes, I would love BYU, Utah, and Utah State all in the Big 12. That would be pretty awesome if you had all 3 of them in one conference. I believe there is a trophy that the 3 of them have played for in the past, but they don't at the minute. He also goes, Ryan is now higher on my list of favourites for his love of BYU, so you're a Quirky Zerky favourite there now. And also he says in regards to Anderson, run it back, do it again, that's how you can get better. Well, yeah, I guess you can, but this is not going to be easy for him this time, because they've lost a little bit in this offseason, and they're not alone in this conference. So the quarterback, you mentioned him, Logan Bonner, is in his 6th season. So he's an Anderson guy. He played for him at Arkansas State for 4 seasons. Well, he's kind of a backup there, but still, played under him there for 4 years. Followed him over to Utah State last year. Broke out big last year. Threw for 3,628 yards, 61% completion rate in 36 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That's a very healthy rate, as you know, the Aggies offense was one of actually the most explosive in football. Now, he's not a rusher, but hell, with the arm he has and the season he had, he doesn't need to be.
Nope. He's a very strong pocket passer. He reminded me a lot of Carson Strong from what I saw him. Very sturdy, big, mobile, upright guy. Just takes shots, stands in the pocket. Like I say, he's winding down. This will be his last year. I expect him to go out with a bang, and he's just going to be slinging it. He's trusted to just take shots and do this offense. And like I say, a lot of explosive players last year. A lot of 40, 50-yard players came from his arm last year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the better quarterbacks in this division. The team at whole, so the strengths of this team, well, like I say, the Aggies offense, it was ranked 3rd in the country in 30-yard plus plays last season. So Bonner torched teams down the field. He's returning with basically the same offensive line that gave him really good pass protection last season. The only problem is the receiving personnel are all gone. However, your line and your quarterback are probably the most important parts of this. You can get guys to come in and get some receiving yards a bit easier than it is for a quarterback and an offensive line. So they've got the parts there to be able to be that good again. But 3rd in the country in 30-plus yard plays, damn good. Defensively, they were solid. They weren't, they didn't jump off the page, but some of their better stats came in critical categories. So they were 31st nationally in havoc rate, which is when you get into the backfield and you make plays, so they were very aggressive. They were also ranked number 10 nationally when it came to stuff rate, so they stopped a lot of runs at or behind the line of scrimmage, so that defensive line really did its job for them last season. In terms of the weaknesses, the draft and the graduation have been very cruel to Utah State this year. They are returning just 57% production. That ranks them in the 90s nationally. So on offense, the losses are at wide receiver. So starman Devin Tompkins is gone, as are Brandon Bowling and Derek Wright, wide receivers 2 and 3. So get this, Ryan. Combined, these three last year went for 3,300 yards and 31 touchdowns between the three of them. They were all double-digit in touchdowns. That's a lot of production for them to lose. Now, they've gone into the portal. They've brought in Brian Cobbs from Maryland and Xavier Williams from Alabama. But Cobbs only has 800 yards in 4 years there. He's not been able to break into that Terrapins rotation, despite the fact it is pretty good. And Williams has 3 receptions in 2 years at Alabama. So, not discounting them, but they ain't a proven commodity yet like the guys that they've lost. They've also lost the starting tight end Carson Terrell, so they've got to replace him as well. Anderson does not traditionally run the ball well either. He is a passing guy. The offensive rush success was 124th in the nation last year. They preferred the high-octane big plays and they kind of ignored the run. Now, they've got their leading rusher back, Calvin Tyler Jr. He had 900 yards on the ground last season, but they really need that offensive line to not only be good in pass protection, they need it to get a lot better in the run game, because with all the receivers gone, they're going to need to lean on the run game more this year. So that's a problem they've got to solve. And then, like I say, that D-line was really good last year. They lost Nick Henninger to the NFL. I think he was fairly high draft pick, actually. But they retain most of the guys there. The secondary's okay, but I mean, the big issue is that passing offense. It was so dangerous for them last year. To lose 3,400 yards and 30-plus touchdowns is a lot to replace in 1 year.
Yeah. If they can't just assume they're going to be able to do that again with just guys they've brought in off the street. That would be very naive to think they can just go out there and expect Bonner to throw for another 4,000 yards. He could do it, but they need a run game. If they want to retain that title, they're going to have to run the ball better. They're going to need a back that gets them 1,100-1,200 yards, because he's a final year guy, like you say, so Bonner will probably want to have his best career year, and that means you probably have to take a little bit of pressure off him. If a defense does not respect the run game, you're not going to get all those explosive plays you had last year, like I say, because you don't have as dynamic threats to receiver. It's a ferocious defense, aggressive, can be over-aggressive, but that makes up for their secondary that wasn't always the best, because they just shut down plays before they even could happen. So I expect them to be menaces on defense again. They'll probably try get many sacks, many tackles for loss, stuff like that. So they don't have to rely on their back end. So the parts are there. Say they're just trying to reload again and have another title run. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can replicate that explosive offense they had last year.
Quirky asks on Twitch, could Bonner be a third-round project for the Lions next year? I think we'd need to see another year like last year first.
I think you'd be looking another Strong. Carson Strong about the knee injury is probably a round 5 guy. This guy's probably going to be like another Bailey Zappa. Probably like another 4th, 5th rounder.
I guess if he can recreate last year with a bunch of new receivers who've got no experience on, then that could push his stock up, and it means he's been consistent over 2 years. I think third's a little high at the minute, but if he has another really good year and Utah State can battle to retain the title, then yeah, there's no reason he can't be drafted high.
I mean, Jordan Love didn't do shit, and someone traded up to 28 to take him. He wasn't even that good at Utah State. Yeah. And he never had a year like Bonner had last year. No. So, I suppose, who do I know? I could be talking rubbish. Someone could take Bonner at the end of the second if they love him.
Yeah, exactly. The schedule. So, the home series is good, the away series is bad. So, you get them compliment sandwiches where you have like 2 pieces of good news in between, on either side of a piece of bad news. Well, their start this year, they start at home to UConn, and then the third game they're at home to Weber State. So really 2 wins in there. In the middle they're away at Alabama. So that's not going to be very easy for them there. Then they have a bye. So, early bye. Then they're at home to UNLV. Then they're away to BYU. They're at home to Air Force. Then they're away at Colorado State and Wyoming. Then they have a second bye, at home to New Mexico, away at Hawaii, at home to San Jose State, away at Boise. The away schedule ain't kind. They're going to need to win a few of those and maybe upset one of BYU or, I would say, Bama, but we know that's not going to happen. But they're up against it this year.
Yeah, so 2 byes. So they've got banks 3 games. Should be... It'll be 3-1 by the time they get. It'll be 2-1 after the first lot. It'll be 3-1 by the time they get to BYU. That will be one to watch. Like I said, that is one where if it's 3-1, you could put BYU an upset alert. Even though I'm higher than them with Jaron Hall, I think that'll be a very interesting game to watch there. But no, the Alabama game don't matter. That's just a free shot. It won't have any bearing on them winning a title. No. It's the conference games that are big. Like I said, the Boise State game will be big. The Wyoming game, Air Force, that should be really fun to watch. The clash of styles, because these 2 play totally different brands of football, and they're going to want to try it. So those 2, that would be a game where one of them can't afford to lose it.
Yeah, that middle chunk at home to Air Force, then away at Colorado State and Wyoming. You need to kind of go 2-1 there if you want to have reasonable aspirations. So we'll see what happens there with them. The player to watch. God, yeah, another defender. So the defensive end, Byron Vaughns. He's 6'4", 225 pounds. It's his 4th season. It's his 2nd at Utah State after he had 2 in Texas. Had 44 tackles last year, 11 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 6 passes defended, which for a defensive end is pretty good. That means he gets up to the line, bats down those low passes. He's more than just a rusher. He can affect the passing game as well. So he's the one to look out for there. Byron Vaughns on that line. They're going to need him to be good this year and bring the pressure and alleviate any pressure on the passing offense going forward. And to finish the Mountain Conference, we got the Wyoming Cowboys. So they were established 1893. They play at the War Memorial Stadium. Their 2021 season, now it sounds good, 7-6, just above 500, but they were 2-6 in the Mountain West. They were feasting on MAC teams on the out-of-conference schedule, so it's kind of a little bit of it kind of sounds good, but it's not really good for them, and they're in a bit of bother this year. The rivalries are with Colorado State. We've discussed that. Hawaii, they play over something called the Paniolo Trophy. So the rivalry started back in the 70s. Both teams played in the WAC. Then Wyoming moved to the Mountain West. Hawaii later followed them. The Paniolo Trophy is the trophy that goes to the winner of the game basically, it's the Hawaiian word meaning cowboy. So the trophy features a bronze cowboy on horseback twirling a lariat. The trophy was donated to the schools by the Wyoming Paniolo Society. That's basically a group of Hawaiian residents who live in Wyoming, or they have Wyoming roots. So there's kind of like a link there. They lost the original one, so they had to make a new one. But yeah, that's what they play for at the minute, a cowboy on horseback. And then they've got the rivalry against Utah State, which we've already discussed. But, cowboy on a horseback's a little bit different.
Are Wyoming and Hawaii anywhere near each other?
No, but apparently,
They can now.
apparently what I've sort of read with this is that there are a lot of like Hawaiians who live in Wyoming and vice versa, and I don't know why. Yeah, it's a weird one, so don't know.
Learn something new.
You learn something new every day. Here's Johnny's joined us in the chat. He says, was at Detroit Lions training camp today. Hey, that's amazing. Hope you got to see some great stuff there. Hopefully the injuries aren't as bad as what they were, but yeah, good for you. College football today. Yeah, we're doing the podcast today early because of work, so we usually do it Wednesdays, but yeah, we're doing it today. But yeah, good on you going to training camp. That's amazing. So the coach of the Wyoming Cowboys. So this is a guy named Craig Bohl. I'm going to say Bohl. It's B-O-H-L. He's in his 9th season. He's 64 years old. He is a defensive coach. He's been a defensive back and linebackers coach as well as a defensive coordinator at a variety of teams. He's been at North Dakota State, Tulsa, Wisconsin, Rice, Duke, Nebraska. Before he got his first head coach job with North Dakota State, his tenure spanned 11 seasons there in 3 different conferences. Had a solid first 8 seasons, but then the team literally exploded in the last 3 years. He went 43-2 over his last 3 seasons, won 3 straight FCS championships, and they even, in 2013, managed to knock off Kansas State, who were the reigning Big 12 champions, and that is a big golfing class usually, and they were able to beat them. Finished at North Dakota State with a record of 104-32. This sustained high period of success he had saw him get his first job with Wyoming in the FBS. He's been there ever since. He had 2 really bad seasons to start, but flipped at year 3. Won a Mountain West championship in year 3. The 5 seasons since, he's got 3 winning seasons and an exact 500 season as well. So he's only got 1 losing season. However, they haven't finished better than 500 in the conference since 2017. Current record is 45-50. He's 27-35 in the conference. He had a 2-6 record in the conference last year. I have a feeling that he won a championship, but that only gets you so long, and I feel like this is a seat that's quite warm.
Yep. Since choosing Josh Allen, like I say, he was one of the products that created one of the best QBs in the NFL. Things have stifled, yeah. It's all right getting wins out of conference, but it's your conference wins that you'll be judged on, and they've not got them there. And I know for a fact they lost one of their star players this off-season. So there was not a good start for this year, because I know full well where he went. So it's going to be difficult this year. Like I say, they're going to struggle. If they have another bad year in conference, there will be questions about his tenure. Like I say, he's been great everywhere he's been. He's done really well here, but if you can't win in for conference games and you can't compete with your rivals, it doesn't look good. It often dooms most people.
Right, so, yeah. Just listen to the team this year. So the quarterback, they lost both their main quarterbacks this off-season, so they went and actually got Utah State backup Andrew Peasley. So he has 830 passing yards in 4 seasons with 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's got 515 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. He is a career backup. The weaknesses of this team, they maybe underachieved last year with some good players. They put some good players in the draft, and they've lost 66% of their production from last season. So you know how I said that teams 129, 130 and 131 in return in production are in this league? This is team 130. Only one team lost more players this off-season. They're returning 34% of their production. That is it. On a secondary that played well last year against the pass, they limited explosive plays. They've lost 6 of 7 starters. At the second level, at linebacker, they've lost Chad Muma to the draft. They also lost their star outside linebacker Solomon Byrd, who transferred out to USC. He's in the Pac-12 now. This defense propped up the team last year, and it has been gutted, and it is going to be very hard to get it to perform at the level it did last year. On offense, they've lost both starting quarterbacks, as I mentioned. They've lost star running back Xavier Valade.
He was very good.
He had 1,000 yards on the ground last year and 1,300 total scrimmage yards. And where's he gone? Why has Ryan got a big ass smile on his face? Yes, he's gone to Arizona State. He's gone to Arizona State, and that's a big get for Arizona State. That is, given all the running backs they've lost. They've also lost Isaiah Neyer, who was their best receiver. He had 878 yards. The next best guy in receiving had 580 yards less than that. He had less than 300. He's transferred to Texas, Isaiah Neyer has. So, what the hell do you do with that? The roster strength for 2022 is ranked 126 out of 131 in the FBS. The strengths... I find it very hard to list the strengths of a team that's only returning 1/3 of last year's production. They've got a new QB who's never been a starter and a head coach who can't buy conference wins to save his life. What a bad situation they're in this year.
It's the perfect storm. It's not fair to judge him on it, but this could be the year that gets him sacked. This could be the nail in the coffin. They might get 1 or 2 conference wins if they're lucky. Like I say, they are returning such low production. They have lost, like I say, both best players on the side of the ball that they literally went through and they were dependable and they relied on. And now it's hard to find how that production is going to gel in just one season. Like I said, they're getting a quarterback that I have no clue who he is. He's got very little rapport to his name. You don't know what he's bringing, and there's going to be instant pressure on him because there's pressure on the head coach already. So it's not a good recipe for a good year.
Well, get this. 4 of their first 5 fixtures do the schedule. So they've got 1 game against Northern Colorado in the FCS. The other 4 fixtures, away at Illinois, at home to Tulsa, at home to Air Force, away at BYU. That's brutal in any way, shape or form. And then
so they're going to be 1-4.
Yeah, and then after BYU, they're at home to San Jose State, so that's probably another loss. Then they're away at New Mexico. Then they're at home to reigning champions Utah State, and then 3 of the last 4 games are on the road at Hawaii, at Colorado State. They're at home to Boise State. Then they're away at Fresno State. That's brutal. Again, in any shape or form.
Yeah, he might not make it to the end of the year. That could be a hot take. He might lose his job by the end of the season if they go winless in conference play until they get to Hawaii or Colorado State. Yeah. 2 big pressure. There's massive pressure on him. He must win those 2. I said, one's a rivalry and one's not very good.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got to get the wins there. To finish this off, the player to watch. Finally got an offensive player. So the running back Titus Swan, he is 5'11", 202 pounds. Valade is gone to Arizona State. There is a quarterback who has never started under center before. The onus is going to be on this Cowboys offense. It's going to fall on the shoulders of the running back. Swan got 785 yards and 7 touchdowns here. He was running at an average of 6 yards per click. So that was really good as a backup. So he's going to be in the starting role this year, and a lot is going to be on his shoulders. When he gets into space, he is near impossible to bring down. I've seen some footage of him, and it's really impressive. And he's also a decent receiving option. I think he's really underrated. So a new quarterback is going to appreciate a running back who can run the ball and can provide an easy option for him in the backfield to throw it to. So I'm expecting to see his numbers skyrocket this season. So Titus Swan is the name to watch out for. So that is the Mountain Division side of this. Now we're going to come on to the home stretch and talk about the Western Division. And the first team here, these are my favourites to win the whole thing at a canter, and I don't even think it's going to be close. Talking about the Fresno State Bulldogs. They were established in 1921. Play at the Bulldog Stadium, and their 2021 season they went 10-3 and they were 6-2 in the Mountain West Conference. They were there or thereabouts. The rivalries: Boise State, the battle for the milk can, we've already discussed that. They have a rivalry with Hawaii as well in what is called the battle for the golden screwdriver. Now, Fresno State lead this 29 to 24 to 21. It's Hawaii's most played rivalry. Now, there's various urban legends surrounding the program and to how this happened, but apparently in 2002, when Hawaii had a victory over Fresno State, there was a claim put in that a screwdriver was thrown from a Fresno State student section in the game and was thrown at the Hawaii benches. Now, the Fresno State investigation said, oh, we've got no witnesses, security didn't see anything, field crews didn't see anything, nothing happened. But, you know, a few weeks later they did come out with an apology and say that one of their fans had thrown a screwdriver at the Hawaii fans' bench. So yeah, that's sort of what gave... So that gave rise to the Golden Screwdriver, which is the trophy that they play for, given that it was a little bit of a scandal that went on there. They actually created a trophy. One of the Fresno radio stations wanted to create a rivalry trophy for them. So, yeah, they fight over a Golden Screwdriver. And this is a really nasty rivalry in terms of the fans as well. So in 1999... Fresno State have a tradition called the Red Mile, so the visiting teams have to walk outside the locker room. It's sort of a really narrow area where all the fans come and jeer and abuse the players, you know, like you do at a football game. And apparently it got really out of hand this one year with the Hawaii players. Loads of them made complaints that the wrong thing had been said to them, etc. And then vice versa, the same things apparently happened in Hawaii as well. A lot of Fresno State fans who have been going out to games, not many of them make it there without getting in a fight with the Hawaii fans there. There's been a lot of problems between the two teams. I mean, jeez, it's another random one, Hawaii and Fresno State, because Hawaii's all the way out in the Pacific, but yeah, that's a nasty one, that is.
It's a bit odd to glorify something that was thrown from the crowd. It seems very ironic to then make a statue out of it. Yeah. Knowing these two teams don't like each other. Like I say, if you don't like each other that much, it causes problems. I suppose just don't play each other, but I suppose they have to feed off the energy somehow.
Yeah, that's a weird one, that. But yeah, just one of those random ones I would have never known existed. And you know what? I completely forgot about Hawaii when I did the conference map earlier. Yeah, Hawaii is way out in the Pacific, nowhere near this. So teams going out there have, I think it's like a 10-hour flight to get out there or something. I can't imagine it's nice on the players going all the way out there, even if it is lovely. The other rivalry they have is with San Diego State. It's called the Battle for the Oil Can. The rivalry dates back to 1923. It spanned 3 conferences and stints from both teams as independents. The Oil Can Trophy, it comes from a 1930s era oil can hailing from Fresno that was found at a construction site in San Diego State. They said it likely came from a time when Aztec and Bulldog fans, when they travelled between football games back in the day, they would carry extra fuel and water in these jerry can type things with them. Down, I think it's Highway 99 that does these. So yeah, they found this Fresno linked, oil can down in San Diego, and they decided to turn that into a trophy as well. So hell, the list of things that they fight over gets even weirder and weirder. This is literally an oil can. San Diego State lead that rivalry 30 to 26 to 4. We've also got rivalry San Jose State, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, jeez, the list gets weirder. A jerry can now. It's just, I don't get it.
College football teams, they have too many rivalries. If we had this many rivalries in British football, there'd be no fans left. We'd all be in A&E. Yeah. We'd all be on intensive care units. Like I said, just have one rival or 2 rivals max. You can't move 4 or 5 rivalries. They're not rivalries. You just don't like each other. You just play for a little bit of scrap metal. I don't mean to be rude, but you don't have that many rivals.
No. Yeah, I think sometimes a lot over there is about advertisement and that in there. Rivalry sells tickets, so maybe that's what it is. So the coach, Jeff Tedford, 60 years old. It's his first season, although it's his second stint with the team. An offensive-minded coach, started at Fresno State in 1992 as quarterback coach and then offensive coordinator, moved to Oregon, did the same there. Got his first head coaching gig at California in 2002. Now, they'd just come off their worst season ever. It was a 1-10 season. They'd not had a winning season since 1993. So at that point, what was it, about 9 years they'd not had. In his first season, they went 7-5. The first winning season they'd had since 1993. It was actually the nation's biggest turnaround of the year, and he was named Pac-10 at the time, Coach of the Year because of that. The season ticket sales went up from just 16,000 to 47,000 in his first 5 years. Just kind of shows how much he changed them around. His first 8 seasons, all winning records. They were kind of mixed in conference results, but 5 bowl wins in 6 consecutive appearances. You know, this guy had major success there. The final 3 seasons, things tailed off a bit. He was eventually fired in 2012 after getting royally hammered the last 2 games in conference of a season. But he left Cal. He had the most bowl wins ever, 5. He had the most conference wins ever, 50. And he coached the most games, 139 in school history. He tied the record for most big game wins. The big game is their rivalry against Sanford. He won that 7 times. He produced 40 players for the NFL draft, including 8 first-round picks.
So this is the guy who got to thank for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he produced 40 players in the NFL, 8 first-round picks in 11 seasons. He moved to be OC with the Buccaneers, but he had heart complications, so he had to leave. Went up to be head coach for the BC Lions in the CFL. Came back to Washington, and then Fresno State came calling in 2017. So he took over a team that had won 1 game the previous season. In year 1, they had 10 wins. In year 2, they had 12 wins. He secured 2 division titles and the Mountain West Championship in year 2. Year 3, he went 4-8, and he had to resign because of health issues, which is why he's not been there. But he's come back now. He's healthy. I mean, yeah, he gave us Aaron Rodgers, but he turned round Cal, which hasn't done anywhere near as well since then. And Fresno, he's had really good success at.
Yeah, and so they're in good state. They're in, like I said, we're going to talk about this, but their head coach just left for Rivalries in Washington. Kirk DeBoer, wasn't it, last year? And their quarterback tried to follow him, but he decided not to against that. So it's not like they're in bad state. They've got a star wide receiver. Their QB reluctantly decided to stay. I still think that was a dodgy move trying to go. So some fans still don't like him for that. But yeah, they're in good condition, like I say, and they could make an old title run. So as long as he's in good health and everything's okay, he's inheriting a good team.
Oh yeah, for me, this is the most complete team in the Mountain West by a long way. So the quarterback, he was a favourite of the college football pod last year. You know, Fresno played week 0. He went crazy, and he kind of stayed in our mind ever since. Jake Hayner, this is his 4th season. Now, me and Ryan have mentioned a lot on the Main Lines podcast that we love the quarterback class this year coming into 2023 for the draft, but not once have we talked about a quarterback who could potentially be drafted this year. Obviously, we're doing the group of 5 leagues, so we're not really around where you find them yet, but this is the first guy who you really need to start taking into consideration for the draft next year, depending on how he does. He is really damn good. So he went off on a rampage in 2021. So he threw for 4,096 yards. His completion rating was 67%, 33 touchdowns, just 9 interceptions. Took in 3 touchdowns in the ground as well, although he's not really a rusher. So he ranked number 8 in the FBS in passing yards per game. He averaged 315 per game. He was number 9 in the FBS in passing yards, 4,096 for the season, and in completions for the game. He had 25 completions a game. He ranked number 11 amongst FBS players in total offense per game, as I say, 316.5. Passing touchdowns, 33. He ranked 14th in the FBS in points responsible for, 218, and 15th in points responsible for per game, 16.8. So he was responsible for a lot of the points his sides scored. He's an excellent athlete. He's really good in the pocket. He can move around under pressure while keeping the eyes downfield. The athleticism is really good. The accuracy, nearly 70%, is amazing. He's got a very quick release, puts good zip on the ball. He just, for me, he has nearly everything you want to be a really good quarterback. He's got rare physical traits as well, which NFL sides will love. And he's really tough. You've got to be tough to be a quarterback in these leagues. He can take hits, stay on his feet, and throw a pass if you need him to. The issue is his frame. He's 6'1", he's 195 pounds. Now teams will look at that and be a little bit wary, and he does lack the elite arm strength of some of the better quarterbacks. But for me, every other facet of his game is NFL ready, nearly, and I expect him to make waves this year, especially if he can lead Fresno to a Mountain West title.
Yeah, that he needs to achieve what he did last year. He needs the title. Like I say, we already know that he's going to have an excellent relationship because he's got Jalen Cropper. He's got his best receiver back again. Them two are always on the same wavelength. They're probably going to put up big numbers again. Can he match last year's numbers? That is the big question. If he can be similar or better, like I say, he can do his draft stock the world of good. But yeah, he'd like to go out on high. He decided that he wanted to try winning a championship, so he took his name out of the portal instead of it almost being a bit of a done deal following DeBur to Washington. And like I say, decided that it was a mistake. He apologised to his teammates for showing a lack of faith. Said he's coming back with a vengeance, and I think he's going to do really well. Like I say, I think he's probably going to prove people wrong that think that he was disloyal to decide to try and leave in the first place. Probably going to light this conference up because this division, it lacks top quarterback talent. He's one of the best. He's the best guy. He is the one that is going to make the most waves in next year's draft. I don't think anyone else can come close to it.
Oh, he's on a pedestal on his own, without a doubt. I think really he is. So yeah, I'm so looking forward to seeing him this year. So the strengths, this Fresno's team is really good. So the passing offense is basically a paper shredder with Hainer under center. They were the 9th ranked passing offense in the FBS last year, and they were 14th in total offense. And they're returning 76% of their production overall. The team is 80% is coming back on the offense, so they're basically returning the entire offense there. So as Ryan mentioned, Kalen DeBoer was initially Tedford's offensive coordinator before he retired, so they run the exact same scheme as one another. So Tedford's coming back to a scheme which he already knows. It's not like there's going to be any gelling in period where he's trying to figure out what they do. They do exactly the same thing. As Ryan mentioned, they've got a stud wide receiver in Jalen Cropper. Jordan Mims at running back is ready to step up and really take control of that room. The offensive line is pretty much all back. It's highly experienced. They were ranked 8th in offensive pass success last season, so the offensive line kept the quarterback safe and they passed the ball really damn well. The rushing success was 50th in comparison, but I mean, that's still comfortably top half. And if Hainer's dismantling secondaries with his throwing, all you need is a 50th ranked rushing offense to go with it to win most of your games. It don't need to be amazing. The defense was really good, just got overshadowed by what Hainer did. 5 games where they kept the opposing side to 10 points or less. I mean, if half your season you need to win 11 points to win a game, that is a damn good defense that you've got there. They're stacked in the secondary. They are stacked at linebacker. The only issue is they've lost 4 of the 6 main guys on the defensive line, but they've still got their star defensive end, David Perellis. He had 13.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 3 forced fumbles on his own last year, so they've got a leader there to train the new guys. The weaknesses, all they were really weak against was explosive plays on both sides of the ball. So the offense was very surgical, it was very precise, but they don't really hit you big downfield, and sometimes that can limit what you can do. But Hainer's just that good, it doesn't really matter. He doesn't need to hit them that far down the field to get the damage there. And again, the same with the defense. They're really disciplined, they're really good at the line of scrimmage, but they do get burned if they come up against a fast receiver who can get on top of them. But I mean, those are minimal problems in the scheme of things there. Outside of that, I just think they're the most complete team in this division, and it's not even close.
Yep, this is the other team in my championship matchup. I'm predicting Air Force v Fresno State as the title game next year. And if it was, I'd say Fresno State would probably come out on top comfortably because they can do the style that Air Force can't. But no, they're the best well-rounded. Like I say, explosive offense, a passable run offense. It's just complementary. That's all it needs to be. You don't have to ask them to run for 1,000 yards a season. There's no need if the offense can be that good. So yeah, stingy defense. Like I say, as long If you only need that offense to score 15 points, they'll go get 35.
Yep.
So it's no worry. Like I say, that defense can be even a little bit slacker, and they probably still win most of their games last year. So this will be potentially a marriage made in heaven. Head coach coming back, doesn't have to change anything.
Yeah.
Could go win a title.
Absolutely. I think the schedule, the first 3 games are big for me. So they are, because they're playing Pac-12 this year, so they're at home to Cal Poly, FCS. They're at home to Oregon State, then they're on the road to USC. If they can beat Oregon State at home and pick that scalp off, I think, you maybe not write the title in their name just yet, but I think that's a really big one. Because Oregon State are all right.
They were good. They were really good last year, Oregon State. So I'd be impressed with that.
Yeah. So if they can come 2-1 out of those first 3 games, because they've got a bye after that, go 2-1, get to the bye. When you come back, you're at home to UConn, away to Boise State, at home to San Jose State, away at New Mexico, at home to San Diego State and Hawaii. Then you're away to UNLV and Nevada. Then you finish at home to Wyoming. I mean, those last 4 teams are easy. That's 4-0 right there, potentially. If you can get through those first few games and maybe knock off one of those Pac-12 teams, then the world's the oyster.
Yeah, they could easily go on 11-1. If USC is their only loss in the season, I would not be that surprised. I think they can outduel everyone else in the Mountain West Conference.
Yeah, agreed. The player to watch, I've mentioned him, but Jake Hayner's a different level. He is this team. He is the heartbeat of this team, and he will have a special season. So, yeah, Jake Hayner, really do keep an eye on him. Next, the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Established 1909. They currently don't have a stadium. They're waiting for their new Aloha Stadium to be built. They're playing on a practice field that holds about 3,000 at the minute, which isn't very good. 2021 season was 6-7. They were 3-5 in the Mountain West, but boy, oh boy, do they have problems this year. I'll quickly go through the rivalries first. Fresno State, we've discussed that. Air Force, so they play over the Cooter Trophy. It's awarded to the winner of the game. It's named after an Air Force General, Lawrence S. Cooter. He was appointed the first head of the Pacific Air Force's command, located at the airfield out in Honolulu. Obviously, you would expect there to be a link here because Hawaii does see a lot of Air Force representation over there. They've met 22 times. Air Force leads the series 14-7-1. The trophy's actually really nice. It's this really nice looking gold bowl on this nice wooden base. Very basic, but does look really good. Wyoming, we've discussed. San Jose State, the Dick Tomey legacy game. They were both coached by the legendary coach Dick Tomey. He died in 2019. They named the rivalry game in his honor. And yeah, they just have a basic trophy for that one as well. UNLV, they are rivals with. So Nevada's long been, a lot of Hawaiians go on holiday to Nevada and vice versa. Apparently it's actually called the Ninth Island. I don't know how true that is, but apparently Hawaiians call Nevada the Ninth Island. They play... So the trophy they play over, it was given to them by the California Hotel and Casino. It's a golden pineapple. So it is this really intricately designed pineapple made out of gold, which they fight over.
I like that.
Yeah, it is. It's really nice, and yeah, it looks beautiful. Hawaii actually leading this series 18-13 as of 2021. So, yeah, some decent things there. I would fight over a golden pineapple, absolutely. The coach. So, I feel so sorry for this guy. He is inheriting a hell of a cluster here. So his name is Timmy Chang. It's his first season. He's 40 years old. He played quarterback for Hawaii in college. Threw for over 17,000 yards for them. He is sort of a hometown legend there. Bounced around some NFL rosters, including the Detroit Lions in 2005. This was our quarterback then. He played in some preseason games. He couldn't beat out Joey Harrington apparently, which, is disappointing because a lot of people could have beaten out Joey Harrington. But yeah, he is the Detroit Lions base guy. He only stayed with us for a preseason and then we cut him, so wouldn't expect many apart from the oldest ones, to have got that. Started as a grad assistant at SMU. He became an OC and quarterback coach at Jackson State. Then he went to Emory and Henry. I have absolutely no idea where that is. Before moving to Nevada, so he was inside wide receivers coach, tight end coach, and then wide receivers coach. And this was under Jay Norvell. He initially moved to Colorado State with Jay Norvell when he moved over. He was going to be the same. He was going to be wide receivers coach there. But then Hawaii came calling for him. They needed a head coach because theirs resigned in February, I think it was. But make no mistake, he is in for a hard job here. You would expect him to be a disciple of this Norvell school of pass-heavy offenses, so you know what he's going to get. But he's taking over from a guy called Todd Graham. He has left Hawaii in an absolute state. He was a disaster of a hire. He has been down there 2 years. So what Hawaii have done, they're in damage control at the minute. They've sort of turned to an old legend that they had back in the 2000s who played really well for them to come and try and stabilise things out a bit for them. But, I mean, good luck to him, Ryan?
I'm surprised they didn't ring Jeff Reinbold. Like I say, literally, well, like I say, he has very close connections as well to Hawaii. Like I say, I'm pretty sure been there. I'm pretty sure he's coached there at some point. I could be wrong on that, but he's got, like I said, yeah, Todd Graham, he's known around the college football, yeah. Do you know what? I'm surprised that they still have a football team. Over the last few years, they have really struggled. They've struggled to have a home as well. I know for a fact that they have been bouncing around and not had venues to play in for a couple of years.
They're building a new ground. It's due in 2 years, I think. But they're playing in a training complex at the minute.
Yeah, it's not been great for the last few years. They struggle with recruitment as well. And for that, like I say, they find it hard to find good players because a lot of them just don't want to go to Hawaii. They don't want to play there. Most high-profile last few years, Cole McDonald, the QB that bounced around the practice squad. I think Seattle took him. Like I say, he was one of the more high-profile players in the last few years. But yeah, it's a difficult school to manage the football regime at because it's not very well funded and it's not very successful.
No, they've lost a lot of players here. So the quarterback, I think it was Todd Santeo. I'll come back to him later because he's still in the Mountain West. But they lost last year's starter, so they've got a three-way battle going on up at the minute. So the backup from last year, Braden Shager, Washington State transfer Cameron Cooper, and Pittsburgh transfer Joey Yellen. I know nothing about these, so I'll move on unless you know any of them.
Nope.
No. So, yeah, they've got a three-way battle there. So, I'm not going to do a strength or weakness thing for Hawaii here. That would probably be an insult for them by what's gone on. So, this is a program that is basically at ground zero right now. So, like I said, they don't have a stadium. They're playing on a practice field that's got a capacity of 3,000 whilst they wait for the new stadium. So, it's not really conducive to creating big atmospheres. Doesn't really give them a home field advantage, and it makes recruiting damn hard because, you know, players like to play somewhere that feels like it's moving in the right direction, and at the minute they're rebuilding the stadium literally. Todd Graham, we mentioned him, he is accused of fostering a very bad culture in the 2 years in charge. He has apparently been verbally abusing the players really bad. This led to a mass exodus from the team last season. So get this, I talked 129, 130 and 131 in return in production this year. Hawaii are 131 in return in production this year. They've lost more than everybody else. They're returning 25% of their production from last year. 25%. A quarter of their team is coming back. The rest has gone. They've lost 10 starters on offense. They've lost 7 starters on defense. And to cap it off, then Graham resigned after they'd all left. All these players were saying they'd been mistreated and they were going, and when they'd all gone, Graham decided he was going to leave and, you know, said it was like a family issue or something like that. He made an excuse and he left, and he's just left them with a mess to clear up. Like I say, the quarterback is gone. Nick Mardner, the star wide receiver, is gone. We mentioned him in the AAC thing last week. The star defensive end, Jonah Laulau, is gone. He's gone to Oklahoma. Basically, every single playmaker they have is gone. And this is the very definition of a rebuild from the bottom. So the coordinators he's brought in, I do kind of like the offensive coordinator hire. So he's brought in Ian Shoemaker. He was the OC at Eastern Washington. You watch your FCS, and Eastern Washington are a team who like to fling the ball around a lot. Exactly the same as what, you know, Chang's been learning under Norvell. So you can tell what they're doing there. The first thing they're going to do is try and install this pass-heavy offensive brand that both of them believe in. So it's going to take time to bring that in. The defensive coordinator is Jacob Euro. He's been there under the last 3 head coaches. So he is an experienced hand who's been there and understands the team a bit more recently. The defense was good against the run last year, but it was very highly vulnerable to passing. So teams didn't really run much on them. So those figures are inflated a little bit there. But I mean, 25% of your production comes back. That's all your star players are gone. You are building from complete scratch. This is like a 5, 6, 7 year job. This ain't a quick fix.
No. I think record this year is irrelevant. If they just win a game, I think they'll be happy.
Yeah.
As if they don't go winless, that'll be a result. Because you've got guys that probably don't want to be there, but just couldn't get anywhere else. Probably just struggled in the portal to even get transfers. And guys that are probably just thinking about graduating. Like I said, football is probably their second thought. So it's a brave head coach job to take. You need to be in it for the long haul. And like I say, you've got to realise that you might not get too much help from the athletic director, the board. They might not exactly take much interest if it goes well, if it goes bad. Yeah. So, like I say, and Hawaiians, like I say, they deserve better. They care about football. I don't know what the national sport of Hawaii is. Like I say, I don't know if it is football, but at least I hope they sell it out. At least they go watch them, at least, because the kids deserve at least that. I hope these games aren't just empty.
I hope when the stadium comes, hopefully it'll help. If he can build sort of a semi-competent team by the time the stadium comes in a few years, maybe they can really push there. But yeah, this year it's going to be tough. So the schedule, they start at home to Vanderbilt, then they're at home to Western Kentucky, they're also away at Michigan, then they're at home to Duquesne, so maybe there's the win, away at New Mexico State, then they have a bye, they're away at San Diego State, at home to Nevada, away at Colorado State, at home to Wyoming, I mean, could be a win there, away at Fresno State, then they're at home to Utah State and UNLV, and then they finish away at San Jose State, so you could see a win or two in there, maybe, but like I say, result is irrelevant here. You just want to see players get better.
Yeah, you just want to feel the team.
Yeah.
Honestly, you just want to get through 4 quarters and not have an injury or struggle to feel the team. Like you say, Vanderbilt aren't great, but it's a good test for them at least because, like I say, they're an SEC school, but they're an SEC bottom feeder, so it's a good benchmark. Duquesne, you don't want to get shown up. Like I say, by then, hopefully, you've got a bit of momentum and you're going to be ready for them. I'll be watching that to see if we're going to be picking a big upset.
Yeah, absolutely. To finish Hawaii off, the player to watch, I've picked out the offensive tackle Ilm Manning. No, he's not of that Manning line. He's 6'4", 280 pounds of left tackle. He has a mixture of surprising speed and brute strength for a tackle. So, you know, Chang hasn't got much to work with out there, right out the way. But what he does have, he's got a 4-year starter who's been a 2-time All-MWC player at left tackle. You know, left tackle's valuable at any level of football, so he's going to have this guy here. He led the team in knockdowns last season, had a 95% plus success rate in pass protection, so if he's got one thing, he's got a really good left tackle to work with there, so watch out for Ilm Manning. I think he declares this year as well, so if he can have a good year, protect his new quarterback, that will do his stock ever so much good. Down to our last couple of teams now, and this is where it got really depressing for me to do this research because so many of these teams are in trouble at the minute. Next, one of my favourite teams from last year who's going to fall on hard times, the Nevada Wolfpack. Established 1896, very old team. They play at the Mackay Stadium. Their 2021 season, 8-5. They went 5-3 in the Mountain West. Maybe a disappointment given the team they had there. The rivalries with Boise State, we've discussed that. The other one is UNLV. This is called the Battle for Nevada. This is the in-state rivalry. This is a wonderful trophy. So they battle over the Fremont Cannon. So the trophy was built in 1970. It's a replica of a 19th century howitzer cannon that accompanied American explorer and politician John C. Fremont on an expedition to the American western Nevada in the mid-19th century, hence its name. The original cannon was abandoned in heavy snows in the middle of the Sierra Nevada in 1843. The replica cannon, they used to fire it following a touchdown by the team who had won it in the previous game, but it's not been able to be operated since 1999. It is very old. The wooden carriage is painted the school of the colour of the team in possession, so it's navy blue for Nevada, scarlet for UNLV. It's the heaviest and most expensive trophy in college football. The students hate one another. On a game day you will see lots of t-shirts that say FUNLV and FUNR, that's Las Vegas and Nevada. I'll give you a guess at what the F stands for on those shirts. In fact, I'll give you one guess, and the word rhymes with duck. They really don't like one another. It's heated inside the stadiums as well. The two stadiums they play at, they're some of the few NCAA football venues remaining that sell alcohol to all spectators of legal age on game day. So basically, these fans hate one another, they get riled up on alcohol, and it leads to brawls in the stands all the time, and it spills out onto the pitch as well. One of the players, the UNLV players, threw his helmet at the head of one of the Nevada coaches and hit him. It's very brutal, it's alcohol-based, but I mean, the reward is amazing. A full-size cannon.
I mean, this is a game that probably should be watching. And it sounds like it's fun to go to as well. Like I say, you can't drink at a lot of stadiums in college, even if you're old enough, they just won't serve you. So, like I say, they don't play by any rules. Like I say, you can smoke, you can gamble, you can drink, you can do whatever you want in Nevada. It's a gangster's paradise, and they play for a fucking cannon. So it has to be Vegas, and everything is bigger and better in Vegas, and their rivalry games too.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you win, you get possession of a literally life-size cannon. So yeah, that is an incentive and a half. The coach, Ken Wilson, 58 years old. It's his first season. Defensive guy. He spent 19 seasons with Nevada between 1989 and 2012. He had a little break in the middle for those doing the math. He was defensive end, offensive linebacker, and safeties coach at one point or another, as well as assistant head coach. Moved to Washington State as linebackers coach for 6 years. Then he moved over to Oregon as a linebacker coach. Andy was the co-DC there. But, like Hawaii, Nevada have been left in a bit of a mess by Jay Norvell, and instead of maybe going for an experienced head coach to come clean it up, they've chosen someone who is very much respected around the organization. He's been there for a very long time. He's got no head coach experience, but they've turned to him. But he has a job on his hands. Get this. They lost 8,500 snaps of play to the draft and graduation, and they lost 3,000 snaps to the transfer portal. So they've lost 11,500 snaps of play from last season. That's a lot. And this is another big rebuilding job from a guy who's not experienced in doing it.
No. It feels like they've really asked him to do them a favour. Like, we couldn't get anyone else, so will you just come because you know us, and just come do the best job you can with little to work with. Like I say, they had some big characters, big guys in the locker room. They're all gone. So this year, like I say, they might not be terrible, but it's one of those years where you just kind of write it off. Like I say, it's another Hawaii job, just less.
Yeah.
Tear it up, rip it down, yeah.
Exactly, and again, he's not got a lot to work with this year. So the quarterback, like you said, Carson Strong, is gone to the NFL. So they've turned to Oklahoma State transfer Shane Illingworth. He's entering his third year. He has never been a starter. He's thrown 69 completions for 939 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The completion percentage is 57.5. It's a little bit of both. But Oklahoma State really have been a good side, and it's a decent side to go in there as a backup QB. Here, you're entering a tough-as-nails division which kills quarterbacks which can't cut it, and he's on a team that's been gutted. I fear like the guy. I feel like some of the other guys here that he's just going to get ruined this year.
Yeah. So it's one of the things. It could be an inspired transfer. He could be one of those guys. It could be Tanner Mordecai that sat so long in Oklahoma and then finally got freed. Maybe this kid just needs a chance to play. Or you say, yeah, you find out why he's a backup. He gets all his flaws, shown, and he gets there's a lack of talent around him. He's not in Oklahoma no more.
Nope. And like I say, he's lost a lot of the supporting cast. So the strengths and weaknesses of the team. The weaknesses. The team has been gutted. They are returning just 30% of production from last season, so that's down nearly at Hawaii levels. They've lost Carson Strong, they've lost Romeo Daubs, they've lost Cole Turner. That was the core of what their offense was about. They lost a lot of players to graduation, and as we say, Jay Norvell took 11 players with him to Colorado State. A lot of those guys he's taken, they weren't starters, but these were the guys they'd prepped to come and fill these positions when all the draft guys and graduation guys left. So they've lost all the guys, a lot of the guys they were prepping to take over these roles. So they don't even have backups now. So the depth is going to be incredibly thin for them. The defense was horrible against the run. They were ranked 125th in defensive run success. There's no experience coming back on the defensive line or at linebacker. So you've got to hope that the next guys are better. They were better against the pass, but they've lost both their starting cornerbacks, so you've got a problem to deal with there as well. And I mean, in terms of the strengths, you're basing this on some great individual talent this year. That's really it. So their leading rusher Tower is back. He had 1,000 all-purpose yards last season, so you've got something there. Don Peterson, the defensive tackle's coming back in his 5th year. He's been highly productive his entire career. The secondary was the one area they did well in. They bring in experience back, but they've lost the guys who were starting games. So, I mean, just every time there seems like a glimmer of hope, it gets crushed because someone else is gone.
It should be fun when Nevada have to go play all the people that left them in the transfer portal. I do not think they're going to be glad to see each other. I think that is going to be a really uncomfortable and nasty experience. They're not going to like playing each other. They're going to see all them players as traitors that went with Jay Norvell. Yeah. You might see a few fights in that game because they won't take kindly to that. So, yeah, there's no pressure on him. He's doing them a favour. But, like I say, he's get through this year, damage limitation, and try get some guys to recruit in there. Like I say, it's not easy. They're not exactly the biggest football market. They aren't going to go and get any 3 or 4 stars. They aren't going to flip anyone. Just try build a new roster next year.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, the schedule works alright for them. The first 3 games, they're away at New Mexico State, they're at home to Texas State, and they're at home to Incarnate Ward, who've obviously lost Cameron Ward at quarterback. So they could go 3-0 to start the season, but then it gets tricky. They're away at Iowa, they're away at Air Force, then they hit a bye. Then they're at home to Colorado State, so Jay Norvell comes to Nevada, so that's going to be big. They're away at Hawaii, they're at home to San Diego, away to San Jose, second bye, then they finish against Boise State and Fresno State at home, and then away to UNLV in the rivalry match. So potentially some wins at the start there to get them going. Might see them surprise a little.
Yeah, they could. If they're 3-0, I think the rest of the year is kind of just 3 shots. I think if they get 3, 4, 5 wins, that's probably a good return to say when they've been absolutely good.
Yeah.
Like I say, the 2 games in between the buys, they're going to get slapped about a bit. So he'd be licking their wounds at that first bye, I think.
Yeah,
they'll be 3-2 by then, I think. So
Iowa and Air Force run the ball down your throat, so yeah, that's going to be tough for them. The player to watch, I've got the offensive lineman Aaron Frost. He's 6'5", 310-pound guard. He's a 2-time second-team All-Mountain West guard. He's going to be the main guy on this offensive line here. They're going to be rebuilding it. He's in his 4th year as a full-time starter. He is highly experienced and one of the better O-linemen in this league, so yeah, Aaron Frost, this is another guy who's going to have to protect a rookie quarterback, and if he does well, and the offensive line does well, his is the name that will stand out from there. So, Aaron Frost. Right, we're on to our last couple of teams now, nearly there. So, we have first up the San Diego State Aztecs, established 1921. They play at the Snapdragon Stadium. They went 12-2 in 2021. They were 7-1 in the Mountain West. They were the champions of the Western Conference, so we've got the champions of the division here, although, you know, we're going to talk about them in a minute, but I think they've got more problems than that record suggests. Rivalries with Fresno State, we've discussed that, But one thing I did find out in just researching this, there was a really memorable game between the two schools. It was known as the Fog Bowl in 1962, and what made it so great, the fog was so thick that the Aztec radio announcer at the time, he couldn't see the plays from his booth, so what he did, he ran out onto the field into the huddle whilst they were calling the play so he could translate it to the radio listeners back home. Can you imagine? Just a commentator just like running on every time they have a play, listening in and then scurrying off again and doing his commentary. I thought that was quite funny. Aztecs won the game 29-26, so good on him for going the extra mile there. And then they've got the rivalry with San Jose State. It's called the El Camino Real rivalry. This dates back to 1935. These are both Cal schools. It's named after the historic 600-mile El Camino Real that connects the 21 Spanish missions in California, stretches from San Diego Bay in the south to San Francisco Bay in the north. There were talks about creating a trophy for it, but there isn't one as of yet. Very close rivalry. It's 23-20 to 22 to San Diego State. So this is fiercely competitive, and it's very fierce in terms of the results there as well. So yeah, there's some good rivalry there between those two, but all in a good nature. The head coach. Wolverines fans are going to know this guy because he was there for a while. Brady Hoke. This is his third season, his second stint there. He's 63. He's been coaching since 1981. He's been all over the show. Grand Valley State, Western Michigan, Toledo, Oregon State, Michigan, Ball. He went to Michigan. Got his first job at Ball State in the MAC in 2003. They hadn't had a winning season since 1996. He didn't have a winning season there in his first 5 years. However, randomly in year 6, they exploded. They went 12-0. They got as high as 12 in the national rankings. It was the first time they've ever been ranked in the history of the school. And they lost the MAC championship again to Buffalo, but to be fair, it was an incredible season for them. He got a promotion to San Diego State for his first stint because of that in 2009. They'd not had a winning season since 1998. They'd not won 9 or more games in a season since 1977, and they'd not played in a bowl game since 1998. In year 2, he'd gone 9-4. He'd won a bowl game, and he basically ended all those records there. And he was meant to be a great recruiter as well. Got him the job at Michigan in 2011. They went 11-2. They beat Ohio State for the first time since 2003. Got double-digit wins for the first time in 5 years. Swept all the Big 12 coaching awards, and then won the Sugar Bowl on top of that. And then, like so many, it all went wrong. The records got worse. He went 8-5, 7-6, and 5-7. Then his ass got fired. He never won a Big 12 conference, never won a championship. It all went wrong. He then went to Oregon, Tennessee, went to the NFL with the Panthers. Then he's back here at San Diego State. He was the defensive line coach under Rocky Long. They had the second best rushing defense in the country under him in 2019. When Long retired, he came back to San Diego State as he got promoted back up to head coach. And last year, this was just year 2 of him being back there. He took them to a conference win and a bowl win as he's kind of trying to rebuild his stock. But overall, a very successful career for him. Just didn't work when the lights shine brightest, though.
Yeah, he's got a very impressive resume. Like I say, he hit the ground running at Michigan. He put a rocket up their ass and then came down to earth with a bump. And then it's been up and down. Like you say, he got to the NFL, but he didn't really last. I think maybe he's found his level again.
Yeah, probably. But, San Diego State won't complain. But they have issues this year. However, the quarterback, I don't know if you know who he's moved there, but a trivia thing here. He is the guy we love to hate on the most because he is as inaccurate as they get. And he was on a good side, and he just completely and utterly ruined their offense. His initials, but that gives it away. His initials are BB. Virginia Tech.
Oh God, Braxton Burmeister.
Yep, Braxton Burmeister is the new quarterback there. It's his 5th season. He's transferred from Virginia Tech. He had 1,960 yards last season, 14 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, which sounds good on paper. but the completion rating is 55%, which is basically his career average. He is wildly inaccurate. Got 521 yards and 2 scores on the ground last year as well, but I mean, you watch the tape of when we got, obviously James Mitchell came from there. We watched Virginia Tech last year. His passes, they always seem to wobble. They always seem to be off target. He's just, I just don't like him as a quarterback at all.
No, he led a stagnant offense. Virginia Tech offense is not very good. No. That's why Virginia Tech as a team have not been very good for the last few years. So you'll come here and he might look really good. That's because he's playing against a lot worse opposition. So I expect the numbers to all suddenly just be inflated.
The trouble is, well, they need him to be good because, we'll do the strengths and weaknesses. The strengths, this San Diego State team is all about its defense. So in 6 of the last 7 seasons, they've finished top 21 in the nation in scoring defense. That's how many points you give up in total. So, they've been top 21 in least amount of points given up 6 of the last 7 years. It's an elite defense in pretty much every facet of the word. They were ranked 3rd in the nation in defensive run success. I mean, which given Hokie as a D-line coach, that's kind of his mantra, to crush the run. They were 22nd against the pass, so they defended the pass really well. And they were 38th in defending against explosive plays, so they didn't give up many of them either. They ranked 12th nationally in total defense, and they kept teams to 16 points or less 7 times. So 7 games to start the season, all you have to do is score 17 points to win. That's why they won so many games. They were 22nd in turnover margin. They got 23 defensive turnovers last year, which was 19th in the nation. So they've lost Cameron Thomas, one of our favourite players last year, but they're returning 60% of the guys, or 60% of the production they had. They're returning most of their players. This defense is pretty much intact and primed to be just as good again. On the flip side, the weakness, the offense, was just... The offensive struggle got masked. They were 98th in offensive rushing success, 95th in passing success, and they ranked 105th in total offense. They've lost 3 starting O-line guys, including all of their guards. They've lost 3 of their 4 top receivers. They've lost standout tight end Daniel Bellinger. He went to the draft. They've lost Greg Bell, who's with the Lions at the minute, and injured, unfortunately. I mean, this was a poor offense, and they've had high turnover. They've lost some of the only good guys they had, and now they've got Braxton Burmeister under center, who I'm just not sold on. And they've also lost Matt Araiza, the punt god, which is probably the biggest loss to them of all. But, I mean, that offense, it's in the hundreds. You've got a defense which is one of the best in the country. Your offense is ranked in the hundreds, and you bring Braxton Burmeister in to sort it, and you've lost all your weapons. I don't see that changing, and I see it affecting them more and them losing this year. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, that defense can't keep them in games this year. Sometimes it can make a team look good. That offense is not going to make anything look good. I think they'll really struggle under Braxton Burmeister on that offense. I think the defense can do its best to keep them in games, but I just don't see them scoring points.
No, and it's crazy when you think, if you were offered at the start of a season 7 games where you only had to score 17 points to win, you'd laugh, wouldn't you, at college level? You'd laugh. I mean, that's nothing.
You would, but I don't. Do I trust this current offense on paper to get 17 points a game?
No. I don't, which is why I think they're going to struggle, and that record last year was really deceiving for me. The schedule, they start at home to Arizona, then they're at home to Idaho State, then they're away at Utah, at home to Toledo, away at Boise State, at home to Hawaii, then they've got a bye. They're on the road to Nevada and Fresno State, at home to UNLV and San Jose State, away at New Mexico, and then they get to finish at home to Air Force. I mean, again, tough schedule. And there are a lot of games, close games, they will lose in there. I mean, Toledo ain't easy, away at Utah, away at Boise State in succession. Christ. No room for error here.
I don't see them scoring enough points to put away half those sides.
No, I don't. So I'm predicting they struggle a lot this year. The player to watch. You can forgive me for this, can't you, Ryan? The defensive tackle Jonah Tavai. And yes, he is related.
A brother.
There's 4 of them. So San Diego State have 2 Tavai brothers there this year, but Jonah is a defensive tackle. He's 6 foot, 295 pounds. And like I say, this defense is spearheaded by its run defense. And Tavai has been the rock at the middle of this defense. So, Cameron Thomas has gone. I know he's an edge player, but he's now going to be the guy who people look at that defensive line, and he might be the one who stands out here. So the production has gone up year on year. He's got 23 tackles for loss, 14.5 sacks. That's from in the interior, and it's harder to get production from there. He's been 2-time All-Mountain West guy. So the Aztecs play a 3-3-5 defense. So he doesn't get much help on that defensive line. He's got a rugby background, so he has the wrestling technique and everything. He can move guys around in the pocket. He's got brute strength. And when it comes to his technique, he's actually really damn good. And I know Tavai is a name that is tarnished in Detroit now, but Jonah's a guy to watch next year. You want San Diego State linemen because they create monsters like Kentucky do. This is the division where they just seem to create guys who are really good. We really wanted Cameron Thomas last year, didn't we? That's sort of the standard they create there.
Yeah, well, we know they're going to rely on him very heavily this year, and he's not very big, is it? But he plays better than he's big. Like I say, if he's like a defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman, 6 foot, that is a massive disadvantage. So he is playing well over than his body and his frame allows him to.
Yeah, he is indeed. But yeah, I think San Diego are going to struggle big this year, and I can basically copy and paste the problems for this next team. San Jose State Spartans. I know we get the initials mixed up because it's so close there, but San Jose State, they play at the CEFCU Stadium. Their 2021 season, they went 5-7. They were 3-5 in the Mountain West. The rivalries with Fresno State, they call it the Battle for the Valley, rooted to the school's close proximity to one another. They call it the Valley, the Battle for the Valley, because Fresno State's located in the San Joaquin Valley. San Jose is in the Santa Clara Valley, which is known as Silicon Valley. So they've kind of made a thing out of that. They play for the Valley Cup. Fresno State lead that series 43-38-3. The trophy itself is beautiful. It is a 3D big silver V. It's like a big letter. It's got all these machine carvings in the side of it. They're so really intricately designed. It's one of the most beautiful trophies I've seen doing these college series so far. So that's a good one to play for. And then they play against Sanford as well. Bill Walsh legacy game. That's another local rivalry in there, but there's nothing malicious in it there. It's good, all good in good hands. Sanford lead the series 52-14-1. So Sanford have been kicking their ass for a long time, but they still have fun with that one there. The coach, Brent Brennan, 49, 6th season, offensive guy who's coached just about every offensive position going, mostly at San Jose State. He went to Oregon State for a while before he got the call to come back home. He's been head coach at 2017 at San Jose State. The first 2 seasons were rough. They went 2-11 and 1-11, had just 2 conference wins. Improved to 5-7. Then they went all the way up to 7-1. They won a conference title, and he got ranked in the AP Coach Top 25. Then last season they sort of regressed back to 5-7. And they were 3-5 conference again. His record is 20-37. It's 14-25 in conference. I mean, this is another guy who I feel like that's a hot seat record there. I know he had the really good year, but that's not a good record in the Mountain West.
That hot year was deceiving because I remember it very well. Star transfer quarterback Nick Starkle came in, and he had a proper chip on his shoulder from where he'd been in the past, and he lit things up. Like I say, so that year, 2 years ago, was massive for them. But then it's kind of come back to reality, back to ground with a thump. They're not stacked with talent all over the roster, and it was kind of the bar was set so high that they now really can't live up to that. So yeah, this is going to be one of those struggling years.
Yeah, and Starkell was injured last year for the most part. I think he missed like 7 games, and then he wasn't fit when he came back, and he looked awful. And the team just don't operate without him. Like you say, it was his influence there. So yeah, the quarterback Starkell's gone, massive blow for them. But I mentioned, they They managed to snag someone out the portal in conference. The Hawaii quarterback, Chevan Cordero, is the guy who's coming. He is vastly experienced. The career accuracy is 58%, which is meh, but he's thrown for over 6,000 yards, 45 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. Again, maybe a few too many for ones like him, but he's got 1,000 yards on the ground, 13 touchdowns. A little bit of a dual threat there. Now, the numbers are not eye-popping, but when you lose a guy like Starkel, who has meant a lot to you, it's decent enough to be able to build around.
I mean, no disrespect to Hawaii, but this guy could be really good. He's just had nothing to work with the last few years. This guy could be really good this year. He could find that he fits in a team that fits him better, plays a better style of football, lets him just throw and air it out. So he could have a really good year. He could be the one guy that surprises all year, and maybe the Rainbow Warriors were just holding this guy back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he's coming into a system where, again, I'm basically copy and pasting from San Diego State here. So the strength, it's the defense yet again. The defensive roster strength is ranked 45th in the nation this year. That's Power 5 level. They were ranked 62nd and 75th in Russian pass success last year, which is middle of the road, but the defense was very young. And they're bringing back 76% of their production, so they're bringing their best players back. They're a year more experienced. There was only one starter they really lost, Jay Leonard, the safety. They've worked the portal well. They've brought in Chase Williams from USC, who's potentially going to be one of their best secondary guys right out the gate. I don't know whether you've seen him much, but I've watched this guy's tape. It's really damn good. So that was a good pickup for them there. And then on the flip side, the weakness, it's the offense. It was really bad because Nick Starkel was injured. They were 70th in rushing success, 109th in offensive passing success, because they didn't really have Starkel got there. He's gone. The leading rusher, Tyler Nevins, is gone. Their left tackle, Jack Snyder, who was really good, has gone. The tight end, Derek Dees Jr., is with the Lions in the NFL now. He was a big part of the way they played. You know, he's gone. They were 127th in turnover margin, so they just didn't get the ball with the defense. They kept giving it away with the offense. They were undisciplined. They ranked 97th in penalties per game. A lot of that was on the offense. And it's the same story. It's a really good defense masking a really bad offense, and you struggle to see how the offense is going to get better straight away because of the losses.
Yeah, I take it back when you put it like that. Maybe he's not in a much better position, Cordero, than he was at Hawaii. Like I say, he's got just as little talent around him right now, and it's one that's always trying to play a catch up because they don't put enough points on the board. So the defense eventually caves in, and then they're trying to chase a game, and that's not a position you want to be in when your offense doesn't score very many points. So it's not going to be an easier year for the QB adjusting, and the head coach trying to find some offense that can match your defense. And the defense is eventually going to get annoyed when they keep doing their bit and they keep getting let down.
Yeah, absolutely. Schedule's not great either. They start versus Portland State. They're away at Auburn. Then they have a week 3 bye, so it's an early bye. So this is going to be a battered team by the end of the season. They're at home to Western Michigan, away to Wyoming, at home to UNLV, then away at Fresno State, away at New Mexico State, at home to Nevada and Colorado State, away at San Diego State, away at Utah State, at home to Hawaii. The road schedule's brutal. I mean, Auburn, Fresno State, Utah State, San Diego State. That ain't a pretty road schedule for them.
Yeah. That defense is going to be severely tested, and that offense might be stagnant. There's going to be some sides there where they're going to get shut out a few times this year, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Player to watch, the edge, Viliami Fehoko. He's 6'4", 236 pounds. Perfect size, really, for a good edge. Racked up the stats in the last 2 seasons. 73 tackles, 25 for loss, 13 sacks, 7 passes defended, 3 forced fumbles, fumble recovery. He's appeared in 24 straight games, so he stays very healthy. He's an absolutely dominant pass rusher. Really big motor, really good technique. He's a nightmare for even the best tackles in this division, so watch out for him. If he has a great third year, watch him in draft conversation. And finally, we're nearly there. The last team we're not going to spend much longer on these because they're not very good. But recently the home of your favourite ever player in college football, the University of Las Vegas and Nevada Rebels, also known as ULVN. I mean, they were home of your favourite player not so long ago.
Oh,
well,
it's a sad story. His career is a sad story, and the fact he ended up there probably says a lot about him and them.
Yes.
It's unfortunately, the Tate Martell. Anyone, I'm not gonna just go look. If you don't know who he is, just go read up on him.
Yeah. The Tate Martell story ended in Las Vegas, and it was very sad. So they play at the Allegiant Stadium. They play at the Raiders Stadium, which must be great for them there. They went 2-10 last year, 2-6 in the Mountain West. Rivalries with Nevada, we've discussed that. The coach is Marcus Arroyo. It's his third season. He's 42. Offensively minded coach. Spent a while at San Jose State, Wyoming, California, Southern Miss, Tampa Bay in the NFL, Oklahoma State, Oregon, and UNLV. This was the guy who was offensive coordinator at Oregon when Justin Herbert was there, and it was widely sort of discussed that they just didn't know how to use him properly. Then they got 4-8 one year with him behind center, didn't they? So yeah, this is the guy who messed up Justin Herbert. He is a career offensive guy. UNVLA, it's the first head coach job he's had. He's 2-16 after 2 years. He went 0-6 in the COVID shortened year. Went 2-10 last year. Could maybe have had a few wins. Did stay in a few games, but they're really going to need to take advantage this season and turn some of those games into wins, because they won't put up with him much longer if he has records like that.
Yeah. This is another coach that I don't think he gets a fourth year.
No.
I think this will be his final year. Unless he can do something miraculous like win 5 or 6 games, anything less than 4 games, he's done for.
Yeah, absolutely. The quarterback battle. So last year they had a freshman named Cameron Friel. It was his first season. He got thrown in there because he had injuries. He threw for 1,608 yards, 62.5% completion, 6 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. You would expect that from a freshman on a bad team, probably getting hassled, probably chasing games, throwing picks. But, intriguingly, they've brought in Harrison Bailey from Tennessee. Remember hearing he was a 5-star rated guy not so long ago. I mean, could he do well there? I feel like he's been wasted at Tennessee, but is it because they just didn't think he was good enough? Could he have a renaissance in the Nevada desert?
I mean, Tate Martell didn't, and he was a very highly rated quarterback. But he had a really bad attitude. I don't know. This is one of those teams where if you end up here, that's because things have not gone very well. Either you're not very good, your attitude has not been very good. I've just been very unfortunate. So which one is it? Is Harrison Bailey a talented brat? Is he not very good? Or is he just fallen through the echelons of football to one of the basements in the FBS?
Yeah.
Like I say, if he does well, like I say, I'll be very surprised. If he don't win the starting job, it probably says a lot about him.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. There is a battle though, apparently, so, I mean, geez, I don't know. The weaknesses, they're big. The offense was terrible. It was ranked 119th in the FBS out of 130. 121st in offensive rushing success. 110th in passing success. They coughed up the ball 21 times. They fumbled it 7 times, threw 14 interceptions, which was joint 100th. And the lower you are, the worse it is. So get this. They lost their leading rusher, Charles Williams. He had 1,261 rushing yards. The next best guy had 109 yards. Like 109. Less than 1,100 less. And he had 1,463 total scrimmage yards. The next best was 699. That was their wide receiver, Steve Jenkins. He's also left. So technically, the next guy they have on the roster got 608 total offensive yards last year. That's all they're bringing back. They literally broke for bad every metric on offense they could. For a guy who is a career offensive guy, that's just not good enough. On defense, I mean, they ranked 30th in the nation in run defense, but when you look deeper into it, the pass defense was 121st. So all teams did was throw on them. They never ran on them, and the few times they did, if you had a success, it inflates your figures to make it look good when it's not. All teams do is throw on you. I mean, the roster strength is ranked 122nd this year out of 131. I mean, I just don't see nothing here for them.
So we found the worst team in the conference, the
Possibly.
division. These are probably the worst, and they're not going to turn it around anytime soon.
It's depressing.
I can't believe they get to play in Allegiant Stadium. How are they allowed to be that bad and grace the Death Star?
Exactly. It's like reward for being bad. I mean, I looked at strengths. Hypothetically, if, Bailey's good, hypothetically, if Kyrie Williams, the wide receiver who was that leading rusher from last year, is good, then maybe they're okay. But the guys they've brought in, Ricky White, the wide receiver from Michigan State, he's barely ever played. The running back Aiden Robbins from Louisville, he's never played. I mean, now they make good running backs there, but, they kind of think they'd keep him if they were that good. The weird thing is they're really disciplined, though. They're ranked 7th in the country in penalties given away per game. So, they're awful, but at least they're disciplined. And that's that. I've got nothing more outside of that. The schedule, they play Idaho State, they're away at Cal, at home to North Texas. So, I mean, those 3 games, winnable to a even slightly bad team. So, maybe. Away at Utah State, at home to New Mexico, away at San Jose State, at home to Air Force. Then it gets bad. Well, at home to Air Force, away to Notre Dame, away to San Diego State, at home to Fresno State. And then after they've been beaten up by all those, they get to end against Hawaii and Nevada. But that's just going to be a lot of whippings that year, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I say, I think once you get to this point, we probably don't hear from the quarterback again next year. Like I say, a 5-star QB, if he can't get it done here, he's done for.
Absolutely. And to finish it all off, the wide receiver Kyle Williams, the player to watch. He's caught 77 passes for 1,027 yards this season in the last 2 years. Averages 13.3 yards per catch. He's got 4 touchdowns as well. If Harrison Bailey becomes good all of a sudden, he's the number 1 target there, so maybe as the receiver his numbers are going to pop and he's going to come out of nowhere. So that's all I've got. I'm sorry you LNV, but you're not good this year. And that is everyone. That is the Mountain West. I mean, like I say, it's a division, a conference we love, but boy oh boy is it in a sorry state at the minute.
Yeah, it's one of those where, like, you look for a team to crack the top 25 of the AP poll, 1 or 2 a year, and right now, you're lucky if Fresno State will sneak in, but there really is no perennial contenders. Like I said, there ain't many Power 5 scalps here.
No.
A lot of them will just lose their Power 5 games.
Yeah, I forgot about Air Force when I was doing this, actually. So, yeah, I think we unanimous, it's Air Force versus Fresno, and it's not even close. I think they're not in the same conference, are they? No, they're not, so they can meet.
No.
So we say Air Force, Air Force versus Fresno. It is unanimous. That will be the title game, and hopefully Jake Kaner can light up the league and provide a little bit of light to the darkness that it's in this year. But yeah, it's going to be tough sledding. Right, well, thank you all for joining us this evening. This has been really good. We're nearly done with the group of 5 now. We've got the Mac Attack to do next week, and we're hopefully getting joined by a local Western Michigan fan there. Sorry, Junie, if I've got that wrong. Junie is a Western Michigan fan, isn't he? From the chat. I'm pretty sure.
It's not Central, is it?
Oh, it might be. Oh, yes, it is.
Jesus
Christ! Yeah, it's Central. Sorry.
He's a Chippewa fan.
Yeah, let's even get Ryan on as well, because Ryan's a Northern Illinois fan. So yeah, we'll be doing the Mac Attack next week. So yes, thank you all for joining us. Ken Stouter goes go USAF. I think that's the Air Force. I want the Air Force to win it this year personally. I think it would be great for a service team to win it, but I love Jake Hainer and Fresno State too much, so they'll be in the title game, and it will be, it'll be a clash of styles. Hainer's throw it all offense versus the triple option, but that's what we love to see. So thank you everyone who has joined us this evening. Really appreciate it. I know it's gone a while, but the The Mountain West is a big conference and it takes time to go through these teams. Ryan, is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we go?
No. Like I say, we've got the MAC before the big boys, but everyone knows about the big boys, don't they? I feel like people will be less interested when we get to those, so they know about them. So right now, it's people don't even know some of these teams are.
No, well, I say hopefully people have learnt a little bit about some of these group of 5 schools that they don't know as much about. I think when it gets to the Power 5, we'll look at some of the players instead of the teams because everyone knows about them. And then we've got the independents, and then week 0's coming. I don't know about you, but I can't wait. We get to preview week 0s and we get to preview actual college games. It's going to be so fun, and I can't wait to do it again. So, yeah, thank you to everyone who has joined us this evening. So for the Roar Lines UK podcast, the main one, we'll be back next Monday. That's in 6 days, so you've got a little bit of a break from us now. I can't remember what we're talking about, and I should do, but we'll probably be training camp recap in full, and I'm sure we'll have something else lined up for you there. Me and Ryan will be back next week with the Mac Attack preview. Like I say, hopefully have a guest, or maybe 2 with us if we can get Ryan Dengle on as well to talk about Northern Illinois. But yeah, till then. Hope you all have a really good week. You can find us on all our socials. You know where to find us. Roar of the Lions UK on YouTube, ROTL_UK on Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, all those ones. Thank you to Quirky Zerky, who's joined us on Twitch this evening. Thank you for joining us. It's been ever so good. Thank you for your questions. I missed one message you put. It would be wild if we drafted Nefi Sewell and Jonah Tavai next year. Yes, it would. But if we drafted a Tavai, they'd be all hell to pay. But yeah, thank you ever so much.